What's going on, you bunch of hoodlums? Just about 6 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Ohio State is your national champion, taking down Notre Dame 34-23. Their offense was too much. Quinshon Judkins, 70-yard touchdown. Jeremiah Smith, another 56-yard touchdown. Super long. And congratulations to Ohio State, your national champion. The Titans hiring former Cowboys special teams coordinator John Fossil for the same job, according to Tom Pelissero yesterday. Fossil had coached on the special teams of the Ravens, the Raiders, and the Rams, so extensive experience. He was the interim head coach for the Rams after the firing of Jeff Fisher in 2016, and the team closed 0-3 that year. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Tuesday morning with the crew back together again on 104.5 The Zone. A Tuesday on RKW begins. Beginning the college football offseason, Ohio State wins the national championship against Notre Dame. What is it going to take for Tennessee and others in the SEC to join the elites again of college football? We'll talk about that this morning. Plus, Austin Price of AllQuest at 8:20. And how the Tennessee Titans type changes under Mike Borgonzi. We got a little bit of info about that from a Kansas City radio host yesterday. We'll share that again with you and get more reaction from Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, myself, Will Bowling, Robert Walsh. Hits all the right buttons. A full crew back in studio on Tuesday, January the 21st. Good morning. How are we doing?
Good morning. How's everybody, man?
Good. I wanted to put a warning out to people that are on the roads today, though, in all seriousness, because I take the back roads. Obviously, this is not the freeway or anything, but there is black ice out there, and somebody at a high rate of speed passed me this morning and did a 360, almost crashed into the pole. Would have threatened my life.
Yeah.
And so just letting everybody know out there is black ice. So if you think you want to get your speed on this morning, please slow down. Because just because it's not raining or anything, it's super slick out there in certain spots. So that's a warning to people.
You usually come down, was it Highway 100?
Yeah.
Yeah, Highway 100 from the Bellmead area and stuff right there, right?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So there's some slick spots.
There's a lot of precipitation over there. So I ain't going to say precipitation, but there's like water that, of course, comes and drains on the road and stuff like that.
I just think people think because it maybe didn't rain or snow necessarily last night that it wouldn't be that way, but it is. So just slow your roll this morning.
Absolutely. Black ice is not for the weak or anybody like that.
It's not fun.
Hey, shout out to you for that warning right there. There's a lot of people
just
that
want to
take
keep
that
the people
route
safe
in the
this morning.
Yeah, I just want to make sure they knew where you were driving in the morning.
But there's other spots around the city that are, hidden like that. So
that's terrible. By the way, everybody's officially back at work now, I think, too.
Yes.
Highways,
correct.
Insanely packed, congested early.
Next week will be everyone's first full week. For many people.
I think you're right.
Since the holidays.
That's a long time, I feel like. Holy
Except
smokes.
for maybe last week. But there were still some people probably coming back from last week.
Usually it's with the starting looking at basketball games when you notice more fans in the crowds. That's my sign that everybody's back to work right there.
Kids are back, students are back.
Colleges, we didn't go back to school this late, which I know we've talked about before, but I can't get over the fact that they don't go back to the teens.
I think UT starts classes today. Today or yesterday?
Yeah, that's wild.
Man.
What are we, January 20th?
Yeah, 21st today. Yeah. Absolutely, man. Well, I'm glad to be back. Everybody's back in the saddle, man.
Oh, yeah.
How was y'all's Monday off?
Solid. Got some work done yesterday. I let go over the weekend. Should have finished it up. So I did knock out my other job yesterday. So I had a few things to do with that. And I knocked out some stuff around the house, too. So took RJ and hit all that type of stuff. Dadding. never a day off, really. But, hey, it is what it is.
It is. Yeah. I just, my nephew and my brother were in town all weekend, so they didn't leave till a little bit later. So got to spend a little more time with them in the morning. So that was fun.
How old is your nephew?
He's 9.
He's 9? Okay. He's a long 9. Goodness. The kid is big.
He's tall. He can be tall. So that was fun. Yeah. I went to Pred's game. That was fun.
Did they win?
They've been winning
3 in a row.
They won 3 in a row?
Uh-huh.
I feel like we've had this conversation before. Like they
got a long way to go before they get relevant again. But they won
You're
3 in a
right.
row.
That's what I was wondering.
Look at us talking hockey before 6:15 in the morning.
It is cold enough, right?
It's technically just, an event we went to, but yes.
It was cool, though?
Yeah, it was great. Jelly Roll was there, as always. He's supporting every team. Earlier, he was at the Vandy Vols game.
Yeah,
that man is
Let's
busy.
talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Caleb,
Jelly
put a pin in it.
Jelly Roll, ladies and gentlemen, has switched sides.
Uh-oh.
Jelly Roll's Tennessee fandom apparently fraudulent, and he listens to the station. So 615-737-1045. Jelly Roll, if you'd like to explain yourself. What the heck, man?
I didn't know he supported the
He's
Vols.
new Kenny Chesney. Yeah, he supports the Vols. He was taking a picture with the national championship baseball coach, which is still Tony Vitello, by the way, on the field at Neyland Stadium earlier this year.
Yeah,
Jelly Roll has been wearing Tennessee orange all season. He was sitting 2 sections down from me at, I think, the Alabama game this year.
Yeah, he was on the field for the Bama game.
And then all of a sudden, the Vandy AD and a camera gets by him. He's like, I guess I got to make a Vandy. So what's the Vandy symbol again? I guess I got to make it now. What the heck, Jelly Roll? I thought we were friends, man.
I feel like he just loves all Tennessee sports, and he doesn't discriminate.
He was just claimed by Vols fans first,
If
Caleb.
you like Tennessee sports, then you like the Vols. What are we doing?
Yeah.
That's Nashville's team, so I don't understand.
Man, I know he's got a Memphis. I know he's got Memphis relationships. Like I get it. Like I'm with Will on this one. I didn't know that he was for everybody. Okay, Kayla, that's the only issue I have. I didn't know. Like Dolly Parton,
chose sides.
Dolly gets it, but Dolly's like Tennessee.
Just stay on that side.
Yeah, it was just
stay on that side.
I don't know if I've ever
He's
seen.
technically from Nashville area. She's from East Knoxville, right?
I mean, look, if he's trying to be new Kenny, then we get it. That's all I'm saying. All right,
New Kenny Chesney dropped. It's Jelly Roll.
that's what I'm saying. I'm like Will. I was just a little shocked.
I was
I get
perturbed.
it. If I didn't know he was, that's the thing. I guess I didn't understand the background of Jelly Roll.
I don't either.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking, oh, he's from Nashville, like he's supporting him.
Nothing in your
Like, I had
background
no
could
idea.
possibly encourage you to switch from Tennessee to Vanderbilt in that rivalry.
That's really funny.
There's nothing.
I wasn't upset at all.
No, I'm
was
upset.
You
I'm
were upset.
upset.
I wasn't upset. I was just a little
I thought we were
shocked.
friends, Jelly.
I did
Maybe he'll
too.
explain it on Buck shows.
It was-
Maybe
No, we were
Oswald's in
friends.
there,
It was just so many handshakes and smiles and like go Vols and like his marketing videos and stuff. KK, I was just
I
like,
get that. I get that.
he's one of us.
A little bit
I
of
like
shock.
Not one of us. He's for the streets, is what I'm realizing. All right? And look, I get it. He is Mr. Tennessee. He's grown bigger than he ever has been in his career. So everybody wants a piece of the role. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I get it.
Well,
Absolutely.
comment getting started early this morning on YouTube that says, you people said the Titans GM job was undesirable. What happened? Explain yourselves.
First of all, we have names.
Yeah. Well, I'm
we're
okay
okay
with it.
with
Listen,
it.
yeah, absolutely. Here's my thing. I didn't think they get a guy like Borgonzi. I did not. That was my whole thing on Friday. Like, you got somebody that did not want to be under Chad in a sense, the way the role was described.
Yeah.
So, of course, when it comes down to guys wanting the job, it's an NFL job. It's one of the 32 GM jobs that the NFL certified to say, yes, this is a GM role. The way everything to this point has been like described and has happened, my opinion, I'll speak for myself, was that who wants to come into this role? So, yeah, I didn't think it was desirable enough for a guy like Borgonzi to come in. But if he feels like it's time for him to, carve his own pathway, what better place to do it than a team that's right at the bottom?
Well, we definitely had the discussion, but I don't think any of us were like gung-ho, like feet to the ground saying no one's going to come here. I don't think that was the discussion. If anything, Will had brought up it's more desirable maybe because of the first overall pick.
Yep.
I didn't think it would be a guy like Borgonzi just because I thought John Eric Sullivan with the connection to Chad Brinker, that was why I was sold on that. It wasn't like I was like, Borgonzi is not going to ever come here.
I didn't think he would.
But there were a lot of questions in what the description of this GM job really is. And we're not behind the scenes. We don't know how these interviews are going. But yeah, it is always a question when you have a guy like that who's been somewhere for 16 years. He's got to make sure it's the exact right fit. And for us, as an outsiders not in that room, we are only told what we're told. And we were told that Chad Brinker had the final say in the roster. And we're still unclear of that.
Yeah, everyone was told that.
Hey, and by the way, you back end of the conversation finger wagging people that see stuff in hindsight. Don't do that. Like, you didn't think this job was desirable enough either on the front end of it. I've seen a lot of people purchase brown paper bags more than I have wanting to hire this job. So don't y'all come in on the back and like, I told you we were back. Stop that. You didn't think this job was gonna warrant a guy like him. So you put that little finger back in your pocket is what I tell you, whoever said that.
By the way, let's keep our powder dry too. Like, I know this is what goes on with this market though. We get so excited about names.
Anything.
It's just incredible. Every hire, every person or assistant that's hired, it's names that we get so excited about. Let's just pump the brakes a minute and let this all play out.
Yeah. We're complicit in that too, though.
Well,
sure. We were saying let Rand cook as much as anybody.
Guess what, Will? I'm not doing that this time. That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to get all hyped up about this hire right now.
I think that's great.
The cooking happened on Buck Show, though, didn't it?
It did.
Brought out the chef's hat, baby.
Yeah, who would do something stupid like that?
Not my producer.
It couldn't be me.
That's why you switch roles on us, baby.
I think that the Titans can definitely take a victory lap about the level of candidate it attracted to this job. And they exceeded my expectations.
Mine too.
It's fair to say, on the candidate they got. The other side of that is Mike Borgonzi's profile and experience is very similar to what Rand Carthon had when he took the job, and he lasted here 2 years. So you never know how these things are going to go. I think the key difference is this time Chad Brinker made the hire and not Amy Adams-Strunk. So you have a football person making a big football hire. I think that's the key difference between the last time you made a general manager hire. So we'll see. But certainly, this job was clearly more attractive within general manager circles and executive circles than we originally thought that it was going to be. And I do think the fact that you only had 3 openings in the league for someone who wanted to take this next step certainly helped.
Yeah, that was my big thing. There wasn't much to choose from. And let's be honest, I don't know who wants to go to the Jets right now. And the other one, Las Vegas, which I know that sounds like it's an okay job too, but again, we're not behind the scenes. They don't have a coach right now in Las Vegas either. So at least you knew who your coach was here. And again,
I don't know if that's a positive though. I think it's a positive to pick your own coach.
It might be, but
some people.
I think with Borgonzi's background also, he is somewhat cross paths with Chad Brinker. So they are somebody, or there are 2 people who know of each other and kind of understand the philosophy. So,
speaking of the Jets, Diana Orsini reporting this morning that the New York Jets are making a push to land Aaron Glenn today. Says that 10 minutes ago. She writes, he is set to visit the team. They are hoping to make it happen, but keep an eye on the New Orleans Saints, who also have an interest in Glenn. A lot of moving pieces, she says.
Wow.
Does that shock you guys that they would go for the same type of coach that they just fired?
My initial thought. That was my initial thought. Like, okay, Aaron Glenn. Well, that was Robert Saleh, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. So I did not have this on my bingo card as far as them picking a defensive guy again. I saw them going opposite and offensive. It's just that sometimes, of course, you want to correct the sins of the last guy, so you go in the opposite direction. But they have no quarterback. They got a team that needs to be built up, and Aaron Glenn's track record of being with Dan Campbell in Detroit, I think, plays a bigger part more than anything that they had with Robert Saleh. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Speaking of a fall off, goodness gracious, what a time that was for Detroit this weekend.
Yeah, it's been wild. It was a wild weekend of football, right?
Did you pick that?
He did actually.
I went 3-0 this weekend.
Yeah, I did the +2, but I think Will actually picked them to
I thought
win.
they might. I said I wouldn't pick it, but if anyone was going to get upset, it was going to be the Lions.
Yeah.
What a show.
The Commanders, like I said,
Jaden.
they haven't let me down all season betting on them. They're incredible when it comes to the underdogs.
Yeah, they are. Yes, they are. And everybody just piles on the Dallas Cowboys while they're doing it too.
Including the Titans.
615-737-1045. The Titans make a very big hire yesterday afternoon, bolstering their coaching staff in a way that would have helped them a lot in year 1 of the Brian Callahan era. We'll hit that headline And head to Atlanta, where the national championship game ends the first expanded playoff season. What do you think about the 12-team playoff at Ohio State now that the dust has settled? That's next. Hey, it's Will Bowling. Are you looking to keep your home in great shape year-round? Hey, well, of course you are. And you know, and Mother Nature has its way in Nashville. You can have all 4 seasons in a week any time of year. You got to sign up for your Lee Company home maintenance plan for just $12 a month. They're going to take care of you over at Lee Company. Planner members receive 4 service visits a year from the Lee Company team of experts. You get a heating system tune-up, an air conditioning tune-up, an electrical inspection, and a detailed plumbing inspection. That's 4 annual visits for just $12 a month. For the very best in-home service, you got to call Lee Company at 615-567-1000 or visit them online at leecompany.com. Just search home maintenance plan to join their membership today. That's 4 annual visits for $12 a month. Stay ahead of Mother Nature and go with the pros at Lee Company. Call them 615-567-1000 online at leecompany.com. That's Lee Company, all you need. Tuesday morning, kicking off your day and your morning on 104.5 The Zone. RKW, Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. The Tennessee Titans and Brian Callahan are making a major upgrade on his coaching staff heading into year 2. According to Tom Pelissero of NFL Media, the Titans are hiring former Cowboys special teams coordinator John Fossil to replace Colt Anderson, who held the job for one season. He joined Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys in 2020 and is largely considered, guys, one of the best, if not the best, special teams coaches in the National Football League. You can go down the list of staffs that have spent their times in Nashville, and you can make the argument that when John Fossil gets to town, he will be the best special teams coach the day he walks in the building in the history of the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, it can be argued for sure, man. I thought yesterday, after researching him a little bit more, John Fossil was a solid hire. And an idea that you got some more experience on this roster. You got a guy that has had, I know, a short head coaching tenure with the Rams, but he's a dude that, one, has respect. And I know there's a lot of coaches on this team, too, that have it, too. Of course, you can't forget about, Tracy Rocker, Frank Bush. Like, there's a lot of coaches on this squad that have it, but to have this guy be another head coach, basically, to a portion of this team, the special teams, that was very much lacking last year. Like, I think the way Coach Brian Callahan hired this last offseason with, Colt Anderson and others that he brought in. I mean, let's not forget Denard Wilson's first time being in that position, too, was big for him. Colt Anderson, another one. Now you have the ability to have a coach who has a long tenure in this league coaching and actually uplifting his unit as far as the special teams go. Solid pickup from him. And just more than anything, you won the optics. Right? That, to me, goes a long way to where guys walk into that room and it's not just, hey, I'm excited to be coached by a guy that's an NFL coach. No, this time around, you should be excited to coach for a guy that's done a lot of good in this league as pertains to Coach Fossil. So, good get. Great that they were able to pull this off. But again, as low as the special teams were this year, blocks, returns, and just, hurting the offense and defense. You needed a guy like this. I'm sure he was able to name his price.
Yeah, this is what happens, I think, sometimes when we've used, last season, the word newness so much in so many ways. And part of that was also, a new head coach who brings in a lot of guys that, he might be familiar with in certain positions. Because when it's all said and done, it's a big staff to build. And yes, you do look elsewhere for certain guys, and Denard Wilson being one of those guys who he put in charge of maybe going out and more so looking at the defensive side of the ball. But for Brian Callahan, there was some guys that he brought over that he was familiar with. And clearly, Colt Anderson was one of those guys coming over from the Cincinnati Bengals. But in your first year, you realize you probably are going to have to make some changes to better your team. And this was clearly one of those positions he felt that they needed an upgrade. And although I will give credit to Colt Anderson and that squad, I think they did get better at the end of the season. For them, I don't think it was enough to say, hey, let's bring him back in that role. And again, it's not been clarified if he is still on the team or not. So we're trying to get some information on that. Hopefully we'll know in the next couple of days some details. But as for John Fossil, you've got guys like Roger Saffold tweeting out, like, this is a great, opportunity, great hire. Played with him over at the Rams. He was first in kick return touchdowns this year for the Cowboys in terms of his special teams group. First in kick return average, first in 40-plus yard kick return, first in punt return touchdowns. So just those are categories right away that stick out to you in terms of what they did last year. But he's got an overall body of work as a special teams coach that is quite impressive and is really dipped his feet in a lot of organizations, including the Ravens, Raiders, the Rams, and Dallas Cowboys, now the Titans.
Devontae Turpin, also a free agent, the returner who was so terrific for the Cowboys last season.
This is a good thing.
Interesting.
One thing I know about good special teams coaches is this. The one that I played in my last few years in Pittsburgh, Danny Smith is one of those types of guys, too, that chews all the gum in his mouth. But those guys are super unique. they have to be able to coach and talk to every single player on the team. So they got to understand offenses. But if you looked at a lot of Coach Fossil's stuff, he's fake passes. He's done a lot of like offensive things. Yeah. But also you got to understand like defensive situations too, where guys are smart enough to know when they're rushing, when they're not, and just the setup of it all. I used to just think special team coaches were the throwaway coaches, to be quite honest with you. Hey, get us to the next phase of the game and don't mess it up. No, there's a lot of game planning that goes into it, and to have somebody as steady as he's been as of late, Coach Fossil, it just helps settle. One, to that point, too, the type of players that he's going to want. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you keep 5 tight ends again, just those types of things. And it'll be fascinating to see, because of this guy and the respect that he has, like what kind of players he'll be asking for. Some teams get heavy with outside linebackers. Some get heavy with DBs. Like there's a lot that goes into a respected special teams coach and his input on the actual roster too.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys ever seen James Bond before?
Yes.
He looks like the nice version of Jaws.
He does.
He looks like Jaws is like me, and from The Spy Who Loved Me, I think Moonraker.
I do remember that.
He looks like the nice version of Jaws, if you look a picture of him up. He's
a very tall, slender guy.
Yeah, very much so. A football guy, too. He's been in the league pretty much all his life, considering his father's been around. But that's an exciting piece for it. I will say, you don't know what you're going to do with place kicker this year, field goal with him, like who they're going to go get as far as offseason signings before the draft comes up.
He would be willing to come. Like he didn't say he wants to retire.
The next question I have for him is, can he throw a football like a quarterback? Because he's very frequent on extending offensive drives with fakes and stuff like that. He's done a few in his career. Bert sent us a video last night of him just speaking about how to steal possessions.
Getting creative.
The good ones that I've been around as far as special teams coaches, they're all about field positioning and can they steal another possession. And watching his resume a little bit of yesterday, that's definitely in his repertoire. And this, too, it makes the opposing team feel like they have to be on their P's and Q's the entire time.
Titans last season had 2 punts blocked, which was tied for league worst. They gave up 655 punt return yards, which was 125 more than anyone else in the NFL. First time Brian Callahan has had a coordinator on his staff who's been a coordinator before. I think that's significant.
Very significant.
It's veteran experience I think he could have benefited from last season when himself and Nick Holtz were first-time coordinators, because he's essentially OC too as a play caller. Denard Wilson was a DC for the first time, and Colt Anderson was a special teams coordinator for the first time. So you have someone who's done the job before, and I think that is very helpful for this team and where they are right now.
Yeah, real quick, Will, on that too. I had a chat with a special teamer after the season was done, and the biggest thing they brought up was, we've improved, but I think the thing that we wish we would have had early on was more the development with some of these younger players. There was none of that really happening because Colt was also learning kind of on the job.
Absolutely. And again, there were so many, I guess you can look back in hindsight and say, I ain't going to say so many, but mistakes were made.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard also as a first-time coach like Coach Brian Callahan, as good as he could be, if finding a respect around the league to where guys also want to come work for you like that. You know what I'm saying? So this, to me, I look at as probably one of the best opportunities to come grab a team that was bad in the department and actually, really raise them up from where they were. Last year, I didn't think it would be an issue, considering I thought most special team coaches understood the job. But it's more than just yelling and screaming.
Yeah, I mean, it's teaching.
It is. It's a whole lot of teaching. It's a lot of skill. It's a lot of stress. Most special team coaches I ever ran across, they don't have voices left, okay, because they're coaching so hard, because they are some of the first ones to get booted out when it comes to the jobs in the NFL.
A fun fact for you before we move on. So that you talked about him stealing possessions and unique ways to extend plays.
Yeah.
From 2012 to 2019, Johnny Hecker was the punter for the Rams. There was not a year that he did not attempt a pass.
Wow.
And there was only 2 years that he was under 50%. There was also only 2 years that he was not either an All-Pro, first or second team, or a Pro Bowler.
Goodness.
That's cool.
Ryan Stonehouse going to be getting his arm loose like the kid in the Cam Newton commercials.
Seriously.
Just warming up my arm.
Just warming up my arm. What a great commercial. Why don't we get those anymore, man? Goodness, I got to stay off our phones. Either way. Either way. You remember when we used to watch commercials because we didn't have anything else to do?
Well, I was about to pivot to college football where I feel like we watched commercials with the college football breaks last night.
I'm here for it.
In the CFP National Championship. Ohio State 34, Notre Dame 23. Notre Dame won on a 9.5-minute drive. Then we watched about 3 hours of commercials, a halftime show, heard from Pat McAfee and Nick Saban again. Then we watched a little more football. And Ohio State finishes off a playoff run that will forever go down as the hardest path to a national championship ever. At least for now, right? They do not play a single one-score game in wins over Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame. The Buckeyes found a way, got it done, and finally lived up to their potential to the playoff. They deserved it. They are the best team in college football. They were the best roster all season in college football. And this season, guys, I'm not even really sure it was that close.
And it's ironic that I think the only reason that maybe they actually switched it on and were the team that they were supposed to really be the entire season was they lost to Michigan. Yeah. And it's incredible to talk about a guy like Ryan Day who is going to be essentially booted out of his position after that loss to Michigan if they didn't go the distance, really. And you think about all the stuff that these guys have said since that moment happened, how tough it was. And, now they're telling the story of we were able to overcome it despite all the crap that was going on up in Ohio. Because, again, there were a lot of mad people. There were a lot of disgruntled fans. And it was Fire Ryan Day. This team sucks. Can't beat Michigan. And they kind of put all that noise out the window and focused on what they needed to do, and give credit to obviously the players, Ryan Day, but Chip Kelly for kind of getting into his bag too and pulling out one of the best, I feel like, game plans for each game in the playoffs that he had the entire season. He showed who Chip Kelly was when he was back at Oregon in this playoff. So, yeah, you knew that this team was going to be hard to beat. I think after the first two games of the college football playoff, it was their destiny to win this one. They won the first college football playoff, and now they won the first ever expanded college football playoff.
Well, no doubt about it. I don't, congrats to them. Seriously, they was just that much good. They figured out who they were. Their defense was that good too. And here's where I am last night as far as that game goes. I'm not sure if their offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock at Notre Dame, is that good, or that Ohio State's defense is that much better too, because when you open up the first drive and you go down the score like that, the script is awesome. What level of coaching are you, though, if you can't get back on schedule throughout the course of the game? Ohio State's defense was just that good, but I thought there should have been a pivot or at least a second drive that you can say, hey, after this script, we're good to go. I didn't see that until the second half from Notre Dame.
It was too late.
Yeah, it's too late.
Yeah, they didn't open it up until late in the game. I just think that's who Riley Leonard is, right? He is a limited passer. He made some good throws down the field, but Riley Leonard is at his best when he's running QB power over and over and can extend plays, get out of the pocket. He's just not a guy that can really be overly dynamic with his arm.
No doubt about it. When after that first drive, he was dog tired. I was just like, I don't know if this is sustainable, because that Ohio State defense got after him. And when he was that tired using his legs the way he did, Will, to your point, if he's not going to be an elite thrower, then there was no chance in them winning.
They made adjustments.
They did.
Ohio State defensively.
Yes, they did. And that running was only going to last for so long. Again, he's tough as nails. I think he can be somebody's backup in the NFL, whatever he chooses to do. I think he can play ball, but there's a ceiling there. Now I'm not sure how high it goes up as far as elevators, man. So, Ohio State's just that good.
Well, and Will Howard, he turned it on too in the playoffs. Will Howard was good. And
he figured out he had 5 stars over there.
He did, right? Exactly.
Yeah, he did.
And so he helped elevate that team as well. And you got the moments you needed out of those big-time paid roster players.
Yeah.
Quinshon Judkins, the Ole Miss transfer that he was okay during the season, but he's had his good moments in the postseason as well. That game last night, you saw him. Just a runner with so much power, you felt like he was on a mission whenever he's in that red zone to get in, for the score. And you have all those guys coming and showing up at moments in the playoffs. That's what you need when you pay that much for a roster. And it paid off, literally.
Will Howard rose his draft stock more than maybe anybody in the playoff. That's what Jim Nagy said yesterday, the executive director of the Senior Bowl and the Titans assistant GM candidate, by the way, Jim Nagy. Will Howard was great. It's interesting just the way he worked at Ohio State because he was going to get benched at Kansas State. And a guy that wasn't good enough to start at Kansas State this season was good enough to win a national championship at Ohio State. Like, I wonder how many starting quarterbacks in Power 4 you could have just plucked and put on that Ohio State roster who would have won the national championship. Probably a lot, right?
Yeah.
However, you can't take away the maturation process that Will Howard underwent over these 4 games. And it's incredible. I mean, Ryan Day is 70-10, guys, now as a head coach. 70-10. He has the second best winning percentage among coaches with at least 80 FBS games. Only Walter Camp, who coached at Stanford and Yale in the late 1800s, has a better winning percentage.
To that point about what's his name, Will Howard, and that point you made about putting him with Ohio State. Do you just suck as a quarterback, or do you not just have the right parts around you sometimes? Because if that conversation is real about putting probably, I ain't going to say so many, probably 5 other quarterbacks and they win the national championship, are you just a bad quarterback, or are you just on a bad team with not enough stars on it too? Because I do believe this, not every star is rated the same. Like, I do think there are some 4-stars and 5-star guys that might not be that good, right? Because they get rated high. But as it pertains to Ohio State and Will Howard, this guy you said was going to get benched. So when it comes down to like quarterback play, we can speak on how great quarterbacks are. And I think some are magicians, but I've always heard quarterbacks say, I need more weapons. Will Howard right there just solidified that as it pertains to a guy that was on his way out more than an in before Ohio State came and saved him.
Sure. And he's thankful for that, right? He knows that was the best thing that could have happened for his career. But you're right. Look at the weapons you're surrounded by. I mean, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Mbuke, like Carnell Tate. Like, this is a roster that's stacked. Plus, add to that an offensive coordinator like Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
Anybody can probably look a little bit better in something like that, situation-wise.
Credit to Ryan Day. He put together the best staff in college football, assembled the best roster in college football, and, he could have just rolled out the footballs and they would have been fine. But found a way to keep that team motivated, keep them engaged. I think he does not get enough credit from his own fan base for what he did, and Ohio State's a deserving national champion. Coming up, there are interesting aspects of the 12-team playoff. Now that we have seen it all happen, what do we think now moving forward? What needs to change about the 12-team playoff? I got one big thing that I noticed last night. Plus, Alabama callers are getting so insane, they are invading other areas that have call-in potential. You probably saw it on social media yesterday. Wild audio from Washington and some Alabama fans. We'll play for you next.
Is your concrete in need of repair? Maybe your sidewalk is shifting, your driveway is cracked or sinking, or your porch steps, maybe they've moved. Shifting concrete can create a dangerous situation and trip hazard around your home. It's just a big eyesore also. It's Ramon Fawson. Whatever's going on with your concrete, call United Structural Systems. Ask them about their polyurethane foam injections. That's right. You've heard about USS for a very long time. It's the same company that's provided superior foundation repair and waterproofing to Middle Tennessee since 1994. Well, they can also fix your sunken or settling concrete. USS uses polyurethane foam injections to lift and repair your sinking concrete in just a matter of minutes. Lifted concrete can be walked on immediately or even driven on after 30 minutes. So don't go through that long, expensive process of ripping out and replacing concrete. Reach out to the folks at I Trust if you have some foundation issues around your home. You can go online at USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com, or call them 615-488-7855. United Structural Systems.
RKW, wrap it up. Hour number one on this Tuesday morning. 615-737-1045 is the number. Was there really any hype around the college football playoff national championship last night? Or enough hype, I should say, for you guys?
Not as much as I feel like there usually is.
I felt like it was. I mean, I was also paying attention to it in a different way, too. So I was hearing a lot of the Notre Dame folks, and, of course, Ohio State was really leaning in also. So I thought it was good.
There was a lot going on, though, yesterday. So I feel like, during the day with inauguration, it's Martin Luther King Day, you almost forgot, like, oh, man, we got a nightcap.
Well, I just think the NFL has taken over. Like, coming off of divisional round football, coaching carousel is largely done. Transfer portal seems to be in the rear view. Like, it just feels like, I mean, literally, it was a month ago that we were playing the beginning of the college football playoff. I think too much time has passed. I felt like the hype level around this game was so small. It was just kind of like, oh, yeah, the national championship game's tonight. I don't know.
I'm with you.
I think they have got to find a way to let this thing end earlier and let the NFL have its time. Because the longer you go into the NFL playoffs and you're reacting to who's playing for conference championships, like for what Brad and I did yesterday on this show, like we spent more time talking about the divisional round playoff games, reacting to those, and talking about whose offseason was beginning, what coaching carousel moves were happening, GM hires, and then it was like, oh, yeah, the national championship games tonight. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just think that the college football calendar is very, very messed up. And this is one part of it I did not expect to be as big of a deal as it was.
I feel like the matchup also hurt it, right? Like everyone, it wasn't like you could come in and be like, Notre Dame might win. Like, I feel like everyone besides Dawn was on Ohio State.
Mm-hmm. And I
was
think,
Dawn on Notre Dame?
Yes, yesterday.
Was she really?
Yeah. So I think, I can't remember who they had on, but they were like, yeah, I would take Ohio State to double 8.5. And she was like, what? Like, could not believe that they would take that.
Oh, wow. I thought maybe, too, just because where we're located and just the SEC in general, the fandom here for football, without having an SEC team in the mix, like maybe it feels different for the South, right?
I don't think so.
In terms of football.
Joel Klatt was talking about this on Twitter, and he's not an SEC guy. Like, this was a national conversation yesterday that the NFL just, like, First Take, ESPN, like, shows that normally would have spent more time nationally covering the college football playoff weren't, in my opinion. I don't think it has to do with us.
I do think it's regional. I absolutely think it's regional. I think if you had an SEC school in it, we just spoke about it a little bit more because of the dominance that the SEC has had in it, the known factor of can the SEC continue to do it again. I do think, of course, most people understood that Ohio State was going to win just simply because they were that good. Everybody realized how good Ohio State was. I think Savage yesterday had a phrase just good as anybody. It was like, Ohio State doesn't bother me. Like, did I want to go up to Columbus and beat them? Hell yeah. But like Ohio State in the general conversation doesn't bother me. The same goes for Notre Dame too. Like, we've seen this story before where Big Dog comes in and kick them in the face and send them right back to confessions. Like, that's what we do in this situation. Like, I don't think they bother you. I just think if it had been LSU, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, the conversation would have been way higher because of also the associated hate that would have come along with the SEC is too.
Oh, I think there's that much hate for Ohio State though nationally.
Oh, yeah.
And for Notre Dame. I mean, Joel Klatt tweeted this last night, said, this is supposed to be the pinnacle of our sport, the destination for every player, coach, and fan. Yet somebody decided that playing the national championship on a Monday night deep into the NFL playoffs was a good idea. The mismanagement of college football has been egregious, and I could not agree more.
I think it's a recipe. There was all these little ingredients that went into it. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with Joe Klatt, but I do think in our region in particular, the SEC in terms of what it is as a football conference. And yes, people are annoyed with it all over the country, just like they were maybe annoyed with Ohio State and knowing they were probably going to win it. It would have made it a little bit bigger to have two big, huge brands that maybe people just absolutely hated. I know there's the theory out there that Notre Dame is hated, but they haven't done anything recently to really make them that hateable.
No, I personally don't agree with Klatt here. I just don't. Like, what else are you supposed to do in this college football playoff bracket? Like, it's set up to me to where it really is a tournament, and tournaments are spread out like this. Football's not one of those sports that you can play like every 3 days. Like, there's no real system like to really efficiently do this than what we just had.
I think there is.
I just think like the duds that you had in like the first round or even the second round, or the way teams got buys, like I have a bigger issue with the seeding as opposed to like the actual makeup of it, as opposed to anything that happened here. I thought this was perfect. It led right into the continuation of the football season, and you still got quality teams in the end. It's just that the perception that Ohio State was going to win happened like the first round of this thing.
So what you could do is not play semifinals on Thursdays and Fridays leading into an NFL playoff weekend. Gives you more time and more ability to discuss the semifinal games. That's one change you make. And secondly, you at least move it up a week. And you move everything up 1 week in this. And that includes conference championships. It might even include week 1. To be honest with you, in order to avoid this happening. Our friend Austin Stanley of A to Z Sports texted me and said there were 10 NFL playoff games between Texas, Ohio State, and the national title. There are a ton of NFL storylines that kind of took over at that point. I mean, it just depends on what college football wants to be, right? Like, do you want to keep continuity and keep your schedule? Okay, that's fine, but you are going to lose some of the attention and eyeballs on your sport by doing that.
Yeah, and I don't think you can completely change it. It is what it is. Like, this is the time football is played. If you're now having a 12 team, I mean, think about when it expands even more. I mean, that's coming right around the corner. There's only so much they can do. They might be able to fix it a little bit, but I think the NFL, it is what it is at this point. They're king.
Yeah,
it is king. And so
then don't compete with them.
Exactly. So you're going to have to find a way to continue. And we haven't seen the numbers yet, so we'll see what the numbers are. But there's ways you can improve, absolutely, the marketing part of it. But I think it's always going to coincide now with the NFL and divisional weekend and all of that.
But also on this too, like the NFL this year caught lightning in a bottle too with the superstars that they have in it. In my personal opinion, like Jaden Daniels playing the way he is, the controversy of what the Chiefs are, the Bills and how they played on the road. Like I think this is a circumstantial situation to me, and I actually enjoy what this format is and how they actually got to the end of it. Like this is a great tournament to me on how it broke down. Like the NFL playing in between. Like, I'll put it this way. Some of these games are played during the holiday season, whether it be right before Christmas, right before New Year's. I thought the way it played on the Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night was still okay. Like, we went through a day to where it was a college football playoff and an NFL game too. Like, that to me is just football season in a sense. Like, I have no issue with it whatsoever. That's my personal
opinion. I do think the matchup was part of it.
The matchups of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course.
Final.
That's a major national matchup. Like, if anything, that should make it have more national attention.
But
because those are two nationwide fan bases.
I understand Notre Dame. I get that,
They're
but
everywhere.
I don't think people thought they had a chance, and they didn't. I mean, they fought back.
The public money was on Notre Dame from a betting perspective.
Yeah, I think people just wanted to see Ohio State upset.
I thought the game did have a good bit of like national prestige.
Oh, 100% it did.
Yeah.
I mean, there are Notre Dame fans here listening to us right now. There are Ohio State fans here listening to us right now.
I'm just saying
those are two fan bases that are all across the country.
We would have talked about it more if there were SEC teams.
Yeah, I'm not talking about just us. I just mean the country.
Sure.
I think could have talked about it more if it had been a week earlier.
I'm saying run it back. I enjoyed it. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Well, they probably will.
Enjoyed it.
They'll run it all back for another year because they'd have to unanimously vote to change it. But did you guys hear the Alabama caller on C-SPAN yesterday?
No.
Absolutely. Yes, loved it.
This is apparently one of the biggest issues facing our country, as political as we'll get on this show. An Alabama caller calling in to C-SPAN on Inauguration Day.
Hoping to become the next director of national intelligence. Graham in Jersey City, New Jersey, Democrats line.
Hi, I want to wish everyone a happy MLK Day. I hope everyone's staying warm. A bit disappointed how the election turned out. I think it would have been great to see a female president inaugurated today. And while I'm disappointed in the American people and their desire to see another 4 years of Trump, I'm a bit more disappointed in the selection committee for not picking Alabama for the college football playoff finals, and instead picking inferior teams like SMU and Indiana. Truly dark times in America.
Okay, Graham there.
That
So,
is
yes,
hilarious.
somebody finished last in their fantasy football league, and that's probably what happened.
That's
I do not
so
envy
funny.
being a phone screener for C-SPAN.
I think that is
Come on.
hilarious.
Yeah, you think you got it bad at Sports Talk Radio.
What's the nature of
imagine
your
those
call?
calls. Yeah, right.
Great.
615-737-1045. The Titans have hired a veteran coordinator to add to Brian Callahan's staff. We'll talk about that next.
My friends at Genesis Diamonds are psyched for the new year, all right? Lots of great things happening, and they are ready to help you celebrate those important milestones with better value, higher quality, and uncompromising customer care. At Genesis, they have expanded their selection of exquisite hand-picked diamonds from a half a carat to 15 carats. All shapes, all sizes, all at Genesis' famous no middleman prices. They have also brought in even more exclusive designer jewelry, new cutting-edge fashion-forward rings, earrings, bands, bracelets, pendants, things you can't find anywhere else. Remember, Genesis is the only place where you can find all the premier designers in the bridal world. And of course, Genesis is proud to offer the truly spectacular collection of luxury pre-owned Rolex timepieces. They have all the most popular models in stock too. So get to Genesis in 2025 and let their non-commissioned experts help you celebrate those important milestones. They guarantee you the best value, the highest quality, the strongest warranties and guarantees in the jewelry industry, and no commission salespeople. Genesis Diamonds and luxury pre-owned Rolex timepieces. They're located in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
What's going on? 7:02. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. The Buckeyes becoming the first two-loss national champion in over 18 years with a 34-23 win over Notre Dame. Ohio State was the far better team than the Fighting Irish in the first 40 minutes of the game, but needed to stave off a late push from Notre Dame to get the victory. Notre Dame with 16 second-half points, but it was not enough. In Titans news, they are hiring former Cowboys special team coordinator John Fossil for the same job. Fossil had coached the special team of the Ravens, the Raiders, and the Rams. He was the interim head coach for the Rams after the firing of Jeff Fisher in 2016. Conflicting reports on if Colt Anderson has been let go yet. Buck Rising reporting that he could be retained or released, but that indication has not yet been made. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
7 a.m., second hour of the show on RKW. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Coming up in 15 minutes, Mike Borgonzi is the new GM. What does that mean for the Titans type in the draft, in free agency? How will the quintessential Titan and the definition of what that looks like change? Robert Walsh at the controls, Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, streaming live at 1045 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. John Fossil, reportedly, coming to Nashville to be the new special teams coach for the Tennessee Titans. And this is a team that badly needed a veteran coordinator. They get one for the first time, a former special teams coach of the Ravens from 05 to 07, the Raiders from 2008 to 2011, and was on staff with one Coach Dave McGinnis with the Rams in St. Louis and LA 2012 to 2019. Guys, when you talk about the OGs, the veteran special teams coaches in the NFL, the conversation begins with John Fossil.
It does. One, grown up into this league. Father's one of those legacy guys too, but he understood where his pathway was going into being successful, and it was on the special team side of things. That's all he's done for the most part in the NFL, and he's been very good at it. Again, what you have now, Will brought it up, is the veteran experience, somebody that understands situations, probably be somebody that Coach Callahan will lean on situationally too. So it's not just the coaching component and development, it's the experience side of things to where, again, questions are asked on the sideline to all coaches, and having a guy that say, hey, in this situation, coach, we can steal a possession and here's how we're going to do it. That's where I don't know where Colt Anderson is right now as far as being inside of the team building, but he clearly was either demoted or let go, because when you bring in a guy like Bones Fossil, stuff changes at that point. You move out of the office and let him sit in your seat. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah, I think that was the big thing last year. You gave Colt Anderson an opportunity to be in a position like special teams. And like you said, Moan, earlier in the show, sometimes it can be forgotten about, but it is such an important part of the overall game. And we saw in so many occasions this last year when your special teams wasn't on point or not even just average, it affected the overall performance. I mean, there was a game that was clearly solely lost, Detroit, because of special teams. So you have to make sure that that is accounted for. And it's not just the coach, it's the players that go along with it. And I think that's the biggest thing this year, guys, that we saw early on with the inexperience of even Brian Callahan being a first-time head coach was, he let some of those guys go. And I don't know if it was his decision or if it was a group decision on some of those special teamers they let go. But that was a thing that a special teamer told me at the end of the season. The development at the beginning was not quite there. There were a lot of young pieces, and they started to bring guys in at the end that were special teamers that had experience, and things got better. And Colt Anderson got better. But I think you live and you learn sometimes in this league. First-timers sometimes in terms of teaching the real fundamentals and basics, even if they played the spot. Like special teams was Colt Anderson's, that's what made him a living in the league. He was really good at it. But teaching for the first time is different, especially when you have a young group. This is what's going to be different with Fossil coming in. I mean, he has years of experience, has been on several different NFL teams. If you look at some of the things that you've seen on him in terms of videos, you can see just the teaching that's being done and how it's being done. Yeah. So I do feel like it's going to definitely upgrade that spot. And maybe Colt Anderson is here in doing a different role in special teams, and he continues to learn. Because I think one day he can be a good special teams coach, but it was the first time.
Here's why I didn't think like Colt Anderson was like what happened. Like you were right, Kayla. They got better towards the end of the season. Right. I didn't think he would be retained because of that. Also, it's just like at a certain point you're supposed to get better. It does matter. Like coaches look at the entirety of your resume throughout the course of the year, and the respect factor to me, as far as coach to player, it plays a strong part. And how players, I'll be honest with you, allow coaches to do their jobs. Yeah. And Colt was, I felt like a little bit last year, thrown into the public wasteland by the fans, by media, and probably by the players too on how they judged him. So you couldn't just parade him back into that team meeting room and say, hey, we're going to run it back. You know what I'm saying? And
You're right.
that's where, again, this hire was necessary. If you put in Coach Anderson in an assistant coach role, cool. I just don't think he would have been able to parade himself back into that room as the head guy.
Yeah.
Because we've seen what that looked like. It's hard to say, yeah, we got better. But it's also one of those situations where you are also that bad. You had to get better. So more than anything, what Bones Fossils does, he raises the floor.
Absolutely.
As far as expectation. And when you got guys that aren't starters, right, that's not playing their position, like you have to be able to have the respect of those guys and make them do the job that you want to, because it is grunt work that a special team coach has to give guys. And a lot of dudes, they'll have a job and they want to do it, but you got to let them, or you got to make them understand that it's a private position to be on a special teams unit like that.
And that special teamer I talked to as well said, I just straight up asked, do you respect Cole Anderson? And he said, yeah, he played the game.
But you see,
but there's a difference between respecting and
the coach,
knowing that guy is ready to teach and develop.
There absolutely, like, I can respect the player, but you may suck as a coach. And here's the thing, guys know that. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure
look, he was given the opportunity, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
he was.
What are you going to turn down an opportunity to go be a coordinator?
And Coach Callahan stood by his man the entire time.
And he knew, though, it needed to change it.
He did, but it does come down to how you're able to manage those guys, because we've seen it, one or two mistakes or guys not understanding, hey, don't catch the football on the 3-yard line on a punt return. Like, it's that to where you somewhat got to instill fear in the guys and not making those mistakes on special teams, because those coaches, again, I said it earlier, they're quick to get fired in the NFL.
Sure. When you improve so much over the course of a season, it does beg the question, where was this week 1 through 8? What did you not do in the offseason that should have happened in order for this to be the norm? And Colt Anderson did not do himself any favors with the way he answered questions for the media. No. He was in over his head from the beginning last season, and clearly was a guy who was better suited to be an assistant special teams coach and was not ready to be the guy. It's part of the risk you take when you bring on a new staff and you bring in a first-time head coach who is managing a staff for the first time. So it's not all Colt Anderson's fault. It's also the fault of the head coach who put him in that position. But I think you have to give credit to Brian Callahan for recognizing his mistake after one season and being willing to make a major staff change after only 1 year here. That takes the ability to admit you were wrong, and you should never take that for granted with head coaches at any level of football.
Yeah, and I think as a first-time head coach, you got to know that it's not going to be perfect after your first year. This was far from perfect, and there were clear, glaring things that needed to be changed. I mean, I'm honestly thinking there still could be a couple more changes, you know, in terms of the staff. Whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know, but that's expected, I think, you know, because you come in and you have in your mind what you think is going to work, but when it doesn't work, you have to be willing in this league to make those changes. And we've seen the coaches that are stubborn to the core that don't make those changes, and they don't last long.
Yeah.
They get fired like Mike Vrabel did.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they do. And the other part of it is, for me, like, this hire doesn't say, like, I was thinking to myself, this hire buys Coach Brian Callahan a lot more time. Know what it does, like, winning helps buy Coach Brian Callahan a lot of time, but this is one of those steps in the right direction that
helps you win.
Helps you win. So I'm looking forward to seeing what it looks like. And again, if what we think is true about Chad Brinken, how they live by the motto, give me as many picks as you possibly can, this is where a Bones Fossil, as a coach, can also help himself by saying, look, those 6- and 7-round picks that you're getting, this is a guy that I need on one of my special teams unit. This is how the type of player, we were speaking about that a little bit in our chat, the type of player we need on this team to be competitive. And, you know, it's football players is what you're looking for, but there's a type usually that most coaches are after.
Coming up next, the Titans under new management have a new type. What will the identity of the Titans roster look like under new GM Mike Borgonzi? We'll talk about that next. New GM in Nashville and lots to discuss in the NFL. As RKW continues in hour 2 on this Tuesday morning, we stream the show live at 104.5 The Zone TV and drop it on your favorite podcast platform immediately when the show comes to an end. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and 1045thezone.com, where you get every minute, every interview, and every conversation here on RKW. So Mike Borgonzi's background is interesting because it's really similar to Chad Brinker's. From Everett, Massachusetts, a 4-year starter at fullback at Brown, Mike Borgonzi, a first-team All-Ivy League player who went into the business sector, spent some time in college football, joined the Chiefs in 2009, and worked his way up to assistant general manager. How do you think the type of player the Titans will go after will change, and what will it look like now under new general manager Mike Borgonzi?
My opinion, I think it gets a little bit more gritty. Look at the type of guys that Kansas City has brought in, too. And I also sometimes look at the type of coaches people are and what they like to do. Like, you get a wide receiver coach, of course, they like to throw the ball around. Most running backs coach like to be on the ground a little bit more close to the line of scrimmage. Initially looking at Mike Borgonzi, to me, I saw fullback. And I'm thinking to myself, grunt. Like, I'm thinking to myself like tough guy. I'm thinking to myself like football players is what you're looking for. And it seems to be, if you look at like Kansas City, that's what they've gone after. Despite guys' situations and illnesses like L'Jarius Sneed's background, right? They still go get a guy like him. Now, granted, it was a later round pick. It ain't like they were picking him in the first round. But when you look at their draft picks as of late, they have been guys that have played a good amount of football and guys that I would probably label as tough. They got a couple of young defensive ends, man. I don't have their names available to me
George
right
Karlaftis from Purdue, the young guy. The lone defensive end they have, I'll get it here in a second. But what I'm saying is this. You see these guys inside the Kansas City building. And you ask yourself, how do they continue to find players? Where I think they're looking at the pedigree, number one, but also looking at the types of guys they are. Felix Onadike-Uzama is the other one, too, the defensive end. I think he had a pretty good game this past weekend also. Long, rangy, motor type of guys that you would say the character traits that they have as far as getting to the football or making football plays never die. And I also say this, too, with as many picks as they have, usually they are not afraid to draft at a position again. They will put you in competition with one another quickly. Like Willie Gay Jr., the reason he's in New Orleans is because they go out and get other guys as far as the linebacker play for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not afraid of facilitating competition. I, for the longest time, had no idea Keandre Colburn was a Kansas City guy. Last season,
You're exactly right.
Texas.
But you know what happens? You either produce for them or they will find somebody else for you. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think a lot of buildings, I know it was a conversation about the Patriots that they're in their heyday. Like, you were never not in competition. You were never not having your position challenged. And I think that's what you get out of a guy like Borgonzi, who's helped facilitate what Kansas City is, too. So we'll see. But his fullback mentality, to me, they're probably going to sniff bullcrap like a mile away when it comes to who you are. So I think it's that will. Hopefully, I feel like I'm going way too long, but hopefully it's this. Hopefully you can start getting past the fluff of guys that trick you, right? Like, I know Isaiah Wilson's far removed from this franchise, right? Or finding a guy that you had a whole lot of hype in like Jalen Duncan, or just others that opportunities meet them and they never just fully grab them by the throat. I think that's a real good sign of a good team is when you're able to find a Trey Smith, right? And he just grabs that opportunity by the throat and you never let go. And good football teams help facilitate that. The players got to do their part and the coaches got to coach them up. But when you're looking for a tight, like, those are the guys that you want to be able to grab. The same way that you have a guy in Joe Thuney that's been a career guard and he finds his way out at left tackle. Now, I'll be honest with you, has steadily played that position since he's been in it. That's what you're looking for. Like, get the fluff. I don't care how many plays you make. Are you an actual football player?
I think there's no perfect way to drafting necessarily.
It ain't. It's not.
Right? I think the best way to know that you're good at it is to just get the experience and to learn from other people who have done it before you in terms of what do they look for in a player, right? I mean, we heard even Brian Callahan last year say, we're looking for a guy who has a lot of experience, played big-time football, has leadership abilities. Like, clearly, those are part of the drafting process that will be taken into all of this, too, because Brian's going to develop these players, and he's going to continue to, have these guys on the team get better. I mean, that's what his job is to do. So he has to be on board, too. But with him in particular, Borgonzi, he came in with the Chiefs organization, which he's been in for 16 years, Will?
Yep.
16 years.
09.
Right. And so Scott Pioli was first there, right? Then it was John Dorsey. And now you're looking at it and it's Brett Veach. These are three guys that he's been able to work with and learn under in terms of what they're looking for. And they're all a little bit different. And while he didn't pick Patrick Mahomes, he was definitely in on the conversation, right?
Well, he saw
was
him go through Alex Smith.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was looking at, these are the things when we scouted Patrick Mahomes, we looked for and said, hey, some of the things he doesn't do well, let's just put that to the side. What does he do well? How could he really become this franchise's quarterback? And he was able to sit alongside and see, what those guys looked for to help that and to get on board with that. I think that when you look at the draft classes in the past few years, we talked about Rand Carthon being able to spot talent later in rounds too. It looks like he's helped do that as well, because you mentioned the one name that I know everybody wants to try to bounce over here in Trey Smith as a 6th rounder, offensive lineman who no one would take a chance on, and they did, and look what it's paid off doing. But they've also gotten some really good ones in the 7th round. Jalen Watson, defensive backed, 7th rounder. Let's see.
Isaiah Pacheco.
L'Jarius Sneed.
Jaden Hicks last year, who's going to become a star probably in this league. 4th round last year. So there are guys that they're developing later on that still mean something to their roster. So they're not throwaways in any way. And if you're really taking a draft seriously, from top to bottom, you've got to be able to hit more than you miss. And it looks like he's learned the art of doing that.
Noah Gray, another one, 5th round draft pick also. I mean, they got guys in spots already that are ready to take over to continue what they've been doing for so long. Patrick also helps with that too. So
it always does, right?
It's interesting when Mike Borgonzi was there originally, closer to the beginning of his tenure, and his team went 2-14. Went into 2013. It's almost eerie how similar the draft situation was then to now with quarterbacks. The top 2 quarterbacks in that draft were E.J. Manuel and Geno Smith. So they said, we need a quarterback, but let's go sign Alex Smith and draft Eric Fisher. Mm-hmm. Similar to the scenario you have now. You don't have a clear number 1 quarterback. Heck, you might not even have a first-round grade on any of the quarterbacks that are in the NFL draft process, so you might just take Abdul Carter. Might take the best player. Interesting the way they let that go. I do think that there is a type on offense specifically, and I think in general, you look at the way the salary cap breaks down in Kansas City, about 47% of the salary cap is devoted to the offensive line and Patrick Mahomes. About 2% of the salary cap is dedicated to the wide receiver position. And it is interesting the way they have decided to surround Patrick Mahomes with young offensive talent. So every season since Patrick Mahomes became the starting quarterback in 2018, the Chiefs have picked a lineman or offensive skill player in the first 2 rounds. Every single year. Last year, it was Xavier Worthy and Kingsley Suamataia. Mm-hmm. In 2023, it was Rashee Rice. In 2022, it was Sky Moore. 2021, Creed Humphrey. 2020, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 2019, Mecole Hardman. I think that's the interesting thing, guys, in how the Packers way and the Chiefs way are different. Mm-hmm. Because in Green Bay, they notoriously never gave Aaron Rodgers any help in the first 2 rounds on offense. Meanwhile, Kansas City has gone the total other direction and has decided every year, all right, on our first 2 picks, we got to get Patrick something in order to give him cheap rookie contract players to surround an elite quarterback that can make those guys play like expensive $10, $15, $20 million players.
And it hasn't been perfect with all of those.
It's never going to be
right?
perfect.
They've not all hit like they probably would have liked them to. But you have to try, like Will said, especially we have not seen that as much here in terms of getting those skill players, drafting them early, and a lot of it because you had to make up for the offensive line depletion. But it is something that you have to do nowadays. You got to go get that wide receiver. You got to continue to build this offensive line next year as well.
I've heard people use the motto, learn from the fool, don't be the fool. Like, that's the same thing. Well, you mentioned Green Bay being in that situation. That's another big-time franchise that did the exact same, did the opposite thing too. New England Patriots. They wouldn't pour into what Tom Brady wanted as far as weapons and wide receivers too. Like, at a certain point, the quarterback can only do so much. Right now, I think Kansas City understands what butters their bread, and it is Patrick Mahomes. Why not pour into a guy like that? The biggest issue that I guess Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi have here is, where do you start to pour in at? That's the biggest question to me. You said one of the initial things they did was sign Alex Smith. Like, are the Titans in a position to where this offseason they'll end up having to go get a veteran guy and somewhat get a platform?
And that was one of the first things they did. Yeah, I mean, it was about 4 years into Mike Borgonzi's time there in 2013?
Yeah.
Going into that season. But that is a way they started a rebuild, yes.
Yeah, it is.
With the number one pick, instead of taking a less-than quarterback just because you feel like you have to.
Right.
They got a stopgap. They bolstered the roster elsewhere. They made it easier when they did go draft a quarterback for that guy to have success.
And it was, too. Again, and going back to, I think, that 2012 draft, too, to get Eric Fisher and also Travis Kelce in the same year. I mean, again, you go with what's going to work for you moving forward, and that was around, if I'm not mistaken, that Alex Smith era. But with that being said, there's a point to where Borgonzi has seen it. Chad Brinker and what they've done in Green Bay have accumulation of like talent over the years, and that's why I feel like a little bit of this tenure has got to be really, really, really patient.
Yeah.
It has to be patient moving forward.
So when you talk about the type of player that the Chiefs like, they love athletic freak Big Ben. That is the number one thing that Kansas City does. So last season, The Athletic has a story about the process in which the Kansas City Chiefs added Xavier Worthy and Kingsley Suamataia. And midway through the first round, Brett Veach and Mike Borgonzi, it says, began calling teams to find a trade partner that would allow them to move up more than 10 spots. Xavier Worthy was not the first guy they were trying to draft. They wanted Amarius Mims, tackle from Georgia.
Yep.
They wanted him to be the right tackle. Right. Athletic freak, massive human being, relative athletic score off the charts, can move, dancing bear, right?
Yep.
To protect Patrick Mahomes on that right side for the next 10 to 12 years. Well, they weren't able to get him. All right. Pivoted. Bengals selected Mims with the 18th pick. The next best option they felt was Xavier Worthy. They traded with the team they're about to play in the AFC Championship game in order to pick Xavier Worthy. They made the deal with the Buffalo Bills. So before last season, Brett Veach had never selected a receiver with a first-round pick in his tenure as GM. Xavier Worthy was the first one. So then Kingsley Suamataia becomes available. They make another move. They draft him, and his testing ability, spectacular. 5'04", 40-yard dash at 326 pounds. Bench press 31 reps. His relative athletic score, something we talk a lot about. We had Kent Lee Platty on the show, the creator of RAS last season. Off the charts. But he's not even the best athlete on the offensive line.
Tell us what.
Because Creed Humphrey, guys, was graded the most athletic center in the NFL draft from 1987 to 2021. Number one, a 10.00. That is the perfect score in terms of athleticism. So if you're looking for one area to say, well, what are the Titans going to be now under Mike Borgonzi? They want athletic freaks protecting their quarterback and playing up front. And that exactly lines up with the type we know Bill Callahan likes as well and the guys that he likes to coach.
Marius Mims. I can't get over that one.
We
of
spoke
course.
about him so much.
It just makes sense, though. It's just online for what they are as an offense, too. You got to also think about this. Like, you can't just blindly draft guys because some guys, you can't make them work for your offense. Some, just in general, the receivers, tight ends, the offensive linemen, you got to get guys that are very complementary to the style of ball that you're playing. And the way Patrick Mahomes moves around the pocket, you need guys that are good and quick and agile on their feet, too, Will. And I had no idea Suamataia was going to be that type of athlete. I will say that too.
And he's raw still. Like it doesn't mean he's a perfect player. It doesn't mean he was even the right pick. It just means that's their type. They want to take a really, really good athlete and kind of double down on their ability to coach you into a really good NFL football player.
You know what's crazy, too, about the Creed Humphreys thing? His biggest knock was what, if y'all remember?
He's a lefty.
He's a lefty.
Left-handed center.
Didn't matter.
Second-round pick.
I ain't seen Patrick Mahomes, knock on wood for the bettors out there, drop a fumble snap yet. You know what I'm saying? And I also haven't seen him be in a position to where he's not able and capable of blocking people. If I'm not mistaken, he's already got a Pro Bowl, maybe a second-team All-Pro under his belt, too.
He has already gotten paid. I mean, he is, by many accounts now that Jason Kelsey's out, maybe the best center in football.
So much so that, like, now they're in a position to where, like, the decision to lean into Creed probably means that Trey may be on free agency.
Alex Gold, a radio host in Kansas City on this show yesterday, said he feels if he was putting money on where Trey Smith will end up, it will be here.
And that's what I think
for
is
a number of reasons
interesting in terms of, what type they're looking for. And I don't think they're going to do the exact same thing that they do in Kansas City because, again, they have a quarterback that they've built around and exactly, what he needs and how that offense with
Very
Andy
smart.
Reid runs because it is, very efficient in terms of and consistent with him as the head coach. So I don't think everything is going to be exact same here in terms of what they do. But it will be interesting if Bill Callahan, continues to be the offensive line coach here, which I would assume he would for the next few years, how that works with Borgonzi going out and getting what he needs. Because Bill is essentially helping develop these guys. And like you said, Will, some of these guys are raw. Like Amarius Mims, we all kind of said, hey, he's a freak athlete, but what is he really going to turn into to be, right? So you got to make sure you got the personnel around you that are going to help get these guys to where they need to be.
And I was just going to add to it, too. They're also a team, too. Once you get established, they don't dabble outside of their building either. I think two of the biggest signings that they've had, the Kansas City Chiefs, to your point about development, retention of athletes, retention of assets also, because that's what you are at that point. Justin Reed, and last year they had to go after Jawan Taylor. They don't go outside the building. They keep in-house, and they, again, to that point, specifically find guys that they know they can work with. And when you're also good, too, is this side of it, you have an opportunity to let Kingsley Suamataia stay behind Jawan Taylor for another year so he can, he's got an out after 2025. And then next thing you know, load them in.
And they've had to keep their defense really cheap. I mean, you're spending so much of your salary cap on your quarterback. I mean, a quarter of the cap for Kansas City is Patrick Mahomes. In 2025, he'll make $66 million. That's 24% of their total salary cap.
You want to hear him look? I'm on Spot Check right now, looking at just where the money is spent to just back up your point. Of their top 10 contracts, Chris Jones is the only defensive player in it. Well, him and Justin Reed.
They keep a really cheap defense that they supplement through the back of the draft. And quite honestly, that is where they kind of have a little bit of a different method. They almost are more like New England on defense because they have to be, right? Mm-hmm. They trust their ability to find gems in the back half of the draft that allow them to have a great defense coached by one of the best defensive coordinators in football in Steve Spagnuolo that can develop less than prospects into good NFL players. And that continuity of Spagnuolo is a major, major underrated reason why they are what they are.
It's laughable looking at these contracts of how many of their defensive playmakers rookie contracts.
Yeah. I mean, half of their entire salary cap.
They're like 5th to 6th, 7th round picks.
Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and the offensive line.
Yes.
Literally 54% of their cap is those guys.
Getting high output production out of Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis, Felix Unadike-Uzama. Just looking at the group that they have. Will, that is a huge get for them.
Your phone calls at 615-737-1045. I know Randy wants to get in here. We'll get him in coming up next. And SEC Hoops back tonight as well. How worried are you about the Vols after a loss over the weekend to Vanderbilt? We'll talk about that next.
Nashville is one of the hottest cities in America. Plenty of options here, sometimes too many when it comes to finding a local real estate agent that you can truly trust. That's why you need to check out my friend Bernie Gallerani. Look, Bernie Gallerani has years of experience. He's got a proven track record on top of that. He's not going to let you down. In fact, Bernie's going to guarantee to sell your home in 30 days or less, or he's just going to buy it from you. Look, buying your first home can be overwhelming. We understand that, but it doesn't have to be. Thomas recently shared his excitement about watching his son purchase his first home with the help of this outstanding Bernie Gallerani real estate team. From the very first contact, the team impressed him with their knowledge, professionalism, and dedication to making the process smooth and stress-free. And now he is going to be doing something very cool. Yeah, purchasing a home, an exciting milestone for his family. Bernie is the only real estate agent in Nashville recommended by Barbara Corcoran of Shark Tank. And he's the only agent I would trust to sell my home. So give him a call on his cell phone, personal cell phone at that, 615-428-2644. That's 615-428-2644. Or go to BernieGallerani.com.
RKW wraps up the first half of the show on this Tuesday morning, 615-737-1045. Let's get Randy in Pleasant View in here talking about the Titans and the draft this morning. What's up, Randy?
Good morning, Will, Kayla. Bert, how we doing?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, good to hear from y'all. So I've been listening, on and off. I haven't heard all your takes on the draft, but I've been seeing a lot of Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, and did nobody watch these playoffs? I mean, we got a boy, Will Howard. I mean, he puts the ball right where you need it to. You ain't got to deal with no drama. He's got a good head on his shoulders. I'm just kind of confused where our heads are at with this. I don't really know. I'm not sure what we see in Shedeur. Yeah, he can throw the ball every now and then, but he doesn't really have that good of he's not much of a mobile quarterback. Now, Will Howard isn't either, but Shedeur can't really put it on a dime like Will Howard can. And Cam Ward, I don't even think he should be in the conversation. But I just want to know your thoughts on that. But Will Howard, number one pick, that's who I'm rooting for. I hear people saying Travis Hunter, but I don't really like him either. I just don't feel like they got a good head on their shoulders over there in Colorado. But I'll hang up, let y'all listen. Hope y'all have a good day, and tighten up.
Thank you, Randy.
There we go, Randy.
Appreciate the call.
Bleep you, Ramon Foster.
I'm going to let y'all answer that one.
Will Howard is a day 3 prospect. He's not. I mean, he's not accurate enough. He's not been consistent enough over his career, I think, to be even a first-round pick. I mean, I saw James Foster, actually, No Flags Film on Twitter, has him as a 5th-round pick. Mm-hmm. I think his number 6 quarterback. As of literally 6 minutes ago.
When I looked earlier, he's placed consensually somewhere between Dylan Gabriel and the Indiana quarterback,
Curtis Rourke.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's easy sometimes for us to kind of look at a national championship team, and especially what Will Howard has done in the playoffs. It's not hurt him by any means when it comes to the upcoming NFL draft. If anything, it has kind of helped increase his draft stock. And we'll see what he does here in the next couple of months in terms of the combine and all of that. But yeah, I don't think I see him raising anywhere close to the first round. Just like Will had mentioned, you just kind of look at his overall body of work. There has been a lot of inconsistencies there. And credit him to what he did in the playoffs, though. He did turn it up to another notch. But I think overall, you got to look at what he's done during his time at Kansas State and at Ohio State. And you're like, I don't know if that is worthy of a first round pick.
Here's my personal opinion. You're asking Will Howard to come in and save a franchise, right? And all things that are involved in that is, if you're picking number 1, you're probably a bad team. Now, of course, a lot can happen over the course of this offseason free agency. It's where you can go get more guys, right? Mm-hmm. Spend more money, get more wide receivers in free agency. It's just going to cost you a good bit, too. You got to also get protection for whoever you pick if you're sticking at number 1 and getting a quarterback. My contingency is this. Looking at Will Howard's career. Again, we mentioned this earlier when we were speaking about there's probably 5-6 quarterbacks you could have put in Ohio State's offense and could have potentially won you this national championship. Will Howard's career, as it pertains to his amount of passes, completions, like this is where, to me, the efficiency of play has to be understood. In 2020, he's 53.6% completion percentages, 8 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. All right. The next year is 54.5. The year after that, 59.8. Last year at Kansas State, again, 61.3. I'll go even a step further and just say I think you can correlate Kansas State football to where the Tennessee Titans were this year as it pertains to the level of talent that you had to deal with, right? You're not going to get
decent.
Yeah,
they're
not,
Kansas State's better comparatively than what the Titans were in the NFL.
My point is this.
They're not a terrible team.
We're glazing over a guy having 73% completion and winning a national championship because he has better stars. Right now, the Tennessee Titans don't have that many stars to bring them to that level.
100%.
Again, if we're going to compare quarterback to quarterback, this year's stats somewhat similar between him and Shedeur.
Yeah.
Cam, what's his name? Will Howard, 73% completions for over 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Shedeur, with lesser talent, 2 last years that he's been at Colorado. For me, if we're looking at numbers, and this is box score coaching, and none of that really matters until you put them in real game scenarios. But Shedeur, 69.3% completion last year. 27 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Knows how to take care of the ball. Come back with more fanfare this year, right? Lesser as far as just guys that he's able to throw to. Again, 74% completion rate, over 4,100 yards, 37 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. One doesn't compare to the other when we're working with less.
And I'll stick up for Cam Ward because he said he doesn't think he's in the conversation. Cam Ward has elevated every team he's been on. And the first 2 teams that he was on, Incarnate Ward and Washington State, that's not a ton of talent that's there. And he elevated those teams. He elevated Miami, for God's sakes. They didn't even have a defense. He kept them in games and won games because he was Cam Ward. So, if anything, you're looking at those 2 quarterbacks in Shedeur and Cam that elevated their team without a lot of talent around them. Or as much as Will Howard.
Will Howard, number 1 overall pick, baby.
Number 1 overall.
As heard here on the Kalen Will Show. SEC basketball tonight. How worried are you about Tennessee after Saturday's loss to Vandy?
Not really worried. Nothing went their way. Vandy came out right. They did exactly what Ron said. That they attacked Zakai as much as you possibly could. Chaz got to get out of his funk. I feel like good players eventually get there to that point, but Vandy played lights out. Can't take that away from him, storm the court and everything. I'm not overly worried, Will, because I've been conditioned and warned by Ron Slater, said playing on the road in the SEC is not going to be an easy task for almost anybody. I feel a whole lot terrible about it if we were the only ones losing on the road the way we have. So
19 of the top 25 teams in the AP poll lost last week.
Yeah.
19 of the top 25.
It's the game, the portal, the style of play also. You got to get to a point to where making shots for the Vols got to be a little bit more automatic. I will say, I'm watching Duke, and I know that's probably sinful to say around these parts, but watching Duke, they get the ball to drop into the bucket way more often at the shots that they're taking. We got to get to that point.
Tennessee was 10 of 21 from 3 on Saturday. They shot well from beyond the arc. I think the issue is more a less talented Vandy team beat you on the boards in a way that doesn't typically happen to Rick Barnes' Tennessee teams. And the defensive standard has slipped. I think there are some yellow flags about this Tennessee team. I don't think there are any major red flags yet.
Yeah, and I think, though, like Ron mentioned, that every game on the road is going to be hard. Well, you got to start winning those games, though, right? Because those are games that are going to matter when the overall body of work is done. You lose to Florida after you beat down Arkansas at home. Then you beat down Georgia, and then you go at Vanderbilt and you lose. Now you're going to have Mississippi State. Let's not make a habit then when you go to Auburn and you're seeing a performance again like you have on the road in these other games. And I understand they lost by 1 to Vandy. But you got to figure out also how to win on the road. That is part of the overall resume that you want in the end.
I got to give it to Barnes. He's mentioned it real quick, too. Like, a lot of this is new to Chaz, right? Sure. Expectation of what he's supposed to be doing. Like, there's a realization that, look, you're here for a reason. Like, being selfless and not putting yourself in position to actually be aggressive like that, like, that's on you. Like, come on. Bring it on home, and I'm sure his teammates are going to surround him in that way.
It's a war of attrition. It's a long season. It's as loaded as the SEC has maybe ever been in college basketball. I think we as SEC fans often treat the game-by-game flow of a basketball season like football. And we celebrate a singular basketball game the way we celebrate football games. And those are 1/12 of the season. This is 1/30 of the season. So, while yes, college sports are fun. Celebrate when you win. I have no issue with that. But I don't think you should take losses as hard in college basketball the way you do in college football. It is so much more of a postseason sport than even college football is in the 12-team era. If Tennessee learns from these experiences and gets better because Zakai Ziegler had to sit the final 7 minutes of the first half the other day, so be it. That's overall better for you even if you take the L. 615-737-1045. There is this idea out there that we watched something happen for the final time last night in the college football playoff national championship game. I'll raise the question to Ramon and Kayla coming up next.
What's going on? 8:01. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. The Buckeyes become the first two-loss national championship in 18 years with the 34-23 win over Notre Dame. Ohio State was the far better team than the Fighting Irish the first 40 minutes of the game, but needed to stave off a late push from Notre Dame to get the victory. Notre Dame with 16 second-half points, but it was not enough. In Titans news, Titans are hiring former Cowboy special teams coordinator John Fossil for the same job. Tom Pelissero reported yesterday. Fossil would also coach the special teams for the Ravens, the Raiders, and the Rams, all R teams. He was the interim head coach for the Rams after the firing of Jeff Fisher in 2016, and the team went 0-3 to close out that year. Conflicting reports on if Colt Anderson had been let go. Buck Rising reporting that he could be retained or released, but that indication has not been yet made. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
And the show goes on into hour number 3 on this frigid Tuesday morning in Music City. RKW, Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, and streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll be joined by VolQuest's Austin Price, getting the latest to the transfer portal, recruiting, and roster retention for Tennessee football under Josh Heupel. It'll be time to shop Ohio State and Notre Dame players over the next 5 days.
Yeah, buddy.
Should be interesting to see who exactly jumps in the portal on that front, as well as the college football season ends last night with a 34-23 win for the Ohio State Buckeyes. So we talked about this, Brad and I, yesterday, and I wanted to get y'all's thoughts because Ari Wasserman of On3 emphasized the point of Andy Staples, friend of the show, who last week had a column that said Ohio State represents the end of the super team era in college football. Ari Wasserman last night says, we will never see a squad in college football with this many good players on the same team ever again. I completely agree with both of them. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's that and the need to go get yours, man, and putting yourself ahead of the team. Yeah, absolutely will. The way I look at this, too, it took a lot of pieces in place to get Ohio State to where they are. And, of course, the buying of the roster is going to be big. What that's also allowed other, players and coaches to realize is I can go do that, too. And what it's going to do to that point is just spread out all of the talent. You're going to have to be a coach, man, that really have a lot of integrity about how you recruit. Be very concentrated in who you're recruiting also, because they've now set themselves up to where, especially who was the player as of recently, Wisconsin had a player leave after saying that he was going to stay and they wouldn't release his portal submission. It's all gone now. It is. I don't think it's still the bottom yet. You might have some people go transfer in the middle of the season the way it's going to move right now. Yes, I 100% agree with that, Will. And especially now, seeing Ohio State being brought up, hey, this was a $20 million roster. Everybody who's anybody right now is fundraising. The amount of players is going to be pulled in different directions to come compete, or when you go get your ring on national championship, why do I have to stay here now? I've hit the pinnacle. You're absolutely going to have this more and more.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to completely change just in 1 year. There's still not a lot of rules and regulations in terms of NIL quite yet to completely cap that. And if you do have more money than another university, while there's other universities doing whatever they can to build up that NIL fund, it is what it is. You still have that money to spend and to try to get those players. I don't think it's ever going to be a roster like that. No. That's hard to say that anything in terms of 21 million can be matched again, and when they're trying to actually regulate some of this stuff. Also, I think with that team, you not only had a roster that was full of superstars, but I think it's hard to get guys like a Chip Kelly, who's done it at, as a head coach in so many other places. And I know he hasn't been successful as of late as a head coach necessarily, but to get that big of a name as your offensive coordinator, and they're paying him a lot as well, like it just seemed like everything worked out for Ohio State this year when it needed to. And I don't think that can be necessarily matched again with a super roster, but I think there'll be definitely teams with way more talent on it than others.
But here's the other part of it for me, though, too, and saying that the reason why I also believe it's going to be the last time, one of the last times, numerous other teams did this. Like,
exactly.
And the payoff.
Ole Miss had $20 million. Look where it didn't even make the playoff.
Texas.
I don't think the money part of it is the headline. I think it's the fact that the core of that Ohio State roster was signed pre-NIL.
Yeah.
I think that's the headline of it, because they were able to keep a super recruiting class that they retained and a bunch of guys who sat behind other stars and waited their turn. That becomes more and more challenging now in college football. JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, the two edge rushers, are the best examples. Those two guys were 5-star recruits coming in at the same time. Both of them stayed 4 seasons and sat behind other 5-star recruits who were ahead of them. Not even Georgia can keep their guys and have the ability to do that. Heck, Oregon this past season brought in Dylan Gabriel. They were unable to keep their 5-star quarterback, who's now going to Cal. Like, Texas Tech has a top 5 transfer portal recruiting class. So the playing field is so much more even. It's going to be harder and harder to retain that level of talent and keep them there for 4 seasons the way Ohio State did this time around. 13 of the 22 starters in that game last night were 4- or 5-star recruits who signed with Ohio State in either 2020, 2021, or 2022.
It's going to be hard to tell who loves you in this era of college football. Like, I loved the University of Tennessee before I got there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure there's some people that loved Auburn before they got the floor.
Yep.
I don't know which coach is going to be able to captivate a young athlete's family, because that's where it's going to start. I've heard so many coaches come in and have this right. You just shop talking. You walk in a parent's house, they no longer have the barbecue meatballs and the rotel and the chicken wings waiting for you no more, right? They ain't got, hey, dad just hopped and got the steaks off the grill. No, that's not the case. Coach Foreman walked in my house, my double-wide trailer, and knocked over my mama's vase, okay? But it was all good because he was impressed. He was there to impress us, and my mama cooked a hell of a spread, too. You know what I'm saying? You don't get no spreads no more. You're going to have pieces. I've heard coaches, there's pieces of paper lined up and said, School A, B, C, and D offered this. Mm-hmm. What you got for me, Coach? We're not even offering Swedish meatballs no more.
And I think a lot of times you have guys who love a school because they grew up cheering for them, but that school doesn't give them what they need. And I literally mean the word need. Like, you have players now doing press conferences saying, I really wish I could have gone this place, but I got to go somewhere else. I got to take care of family, got to take care of myself, got to go with the best available offer. And sometimes that doesn't come from the team that you grew up cheering for.
Mm-mm. Yeah. And sometimes, as a university like Ohio State, like Georgia, some of these big time college football universities, maybe they do prioritize a few of those guys, like a Jack Sawyer. And I understand he came before the NIL era. He's from 10 minutes down the road in Pickerington, right? That was his dream to come play for Ohio State. There's still going to be guys like that are probably going to stay at their university. But I understand what you're saying. Overall, it's going to be harder to keep those type of players, because if they get offered more money to go down, south, they're going to take that. So, I understand overall what you're saying about the roster. I'm not saying there's going to ever be a roster or a super team like this again. But I do feel like in the next couple of years, you're still going to see the big name schools collecting those type of talent and being able to compete at the top.
Ole Miss did it. To me, that the biggest issue is, one, the money, and then where the money is coming from too. Because as much as the Peyton Manning locker room, the ones that are actually paying it are the ones that have been paying it too. And at a certain point, the schools like Ole Miss or Texas A&M or Tennessee, or Clemson, whoever is the big name, top tier schools that's not winning it, I think the money decreases at a certain point too. Because how can Lane Kiffin go back to Oxford and say, I don't know who their big donors are. Hey, biggest donor in Mississippi.
Right.
Run it back. I got you next year. Like, that's where, to me, I think you really break down the super rosters and all those types of things, because at some point, you got to show me my money is paying off. And I think that's where a lot of schools going to run into issues, because it's going to boil down to culture and coaches, to me.
We will look back and remember this Ohio State team as the team that had the hardest path ever to a national championship, though. The gauntlet that they went through to win that title last night, in hosting Tennessee, playing Oregon, playing Texas, and playing Notre Dame is incredible. But let's get one thing straight. This idea that Tennessee did not belong in the college football playoff because they gave a bunch of points to Ohio State, we now know as well as ever was bullcrap. And it always was bullcrap, because the people who are saying that could never give me a better team that should have been there instead, which is how you know somebody's just being a hater. You don't know they actually have discourse and a conversation they want to bring to the table. But a lot of you owe Tennessee football an apology off of what Ohio State did to everyone else who they played against, other than Notre Dame a little bit in the second half. That made that thing a game last night. But overall, Ohio State did not play a single one-score game in the college football playoff.
Wasn't it, though, Vols themselves that were giving Tennessee hate because they got blown out?
It was the fans.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, to me, everything that came from Tennessee and Ohio State fiasco was the base. We barked. We barked loud, and I was glad to be barking, too.
We'll do it again.
I'll do it again next year, Caleb.
I'll see me do it again.
I'm going to love it even harder next year. That's what sports is, though. But
Absolutely.
like Will said, the analysts that are on the networks that say you didn't belong, did Notre Dame not belong?
Did Oregon belong?
We had a guy call in, of course, who's big bragging about what the Irish was doing. And I told him, I think it's running on the radio right now. You better win. You better win. And they didn't, because Ohio State's that much better than everybody else right now. You talk a lot of crap going into this, because that's what college sports is about. I hope we don't ever get away from that, okay? I learned a very valuable lesson at 2.0 on Sunday. I ain't ever going to a live sporting event ever again in my life.
You said that the last time. I'll believe it when I see it.
I was there to support my girl, man. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I was there to support my wife. Everything about
Lady
that was
Vols
going on.
Vandy, for those who are unfamiliar.
I saw little girls in their little makeshift
You
suites.
might be bad
okay?
luck. That might be the root
I
of
also
it.
saw one of the worst officiated sporting events I've ever watched in my life.
It was.
Oh, my gosh.
By the
Terrible.
way,
Both ways was terrible.
Can any arena have a section of about 100 seats for people 6'4" and taller? I'm 6'6", okay? I'm a bigger dude just in general. I had women that was tweeting at me, I'm 5'9", and I was uncomfortable. Can we please have a section of about 150 seats for people 6'4" and taller? That's all I'm
You
at.
should invent it.
I got a bruise on my leg from trying to spread my legs out from where the doggone seat hinges was right there, man. I'm like,
I
You
think
sound like my brother at the Preds game.
What you're referring to are suites, Ramona.
Yeah, look, I'm
Plenty of leg
You
room
need
up
to go
there.
back to that suite
You just
life.
got to pay a little
I'm
bit
gonna
extra.
do it,
for
okay?
Back to the suite life.
I ain't ashamed to pay for a suite. I'm
Yeah.
saying I search comfort more than anything.
Coming up next, VolQuest's Austin Price will join us. Tennessee adding a running back at the transfer portal. Could they do a lot more shopping now with Ohio State and Notre Dame's roster available with the portal open? We'll talk with Austin Price next.
It's Ramon Foster for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Y'all, they've been in business since 1990, all right? And they are family-owned and operated. So much so, man, they're on a Jimmy Hiller was recently named among the most admired CEOs because of the way he truly cares for his team and for his clients also, all right? Hiller takes care of the customer on every job, every single time. They stand behind the work. So much so, they have a slogan. It's 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be or the service is free. If a customer isn't pleased with the work performed, they will make it right, all right? They always send the professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians. They come into your home and they leave it cleaner and better than where they found it. Of course, if you need something fixed, they will leave it better, all right? They've been to my house a few times, and here's what they also offer you up to you. They offer true transparency pricing. You know what that means? It means that Hiller will outline everything they will do up front about the job so that the homeowner can easily understand what they're paying for and why, all right? There are no hidden fees, no added costs, no surprises when you get your bill. Whatever they said is what you will get on the back end. Learn more simply by visiting happyhiller.com.
When the glass breaks, we talk Vols on RKW. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, joined as we are every Tuesday at 8:20 by our friend Austin Price of VolQuest and On3 at Austin Priceless, where you follow him on Twitter. Austin, good morning. How are you?
Good Tuesday morning, everybody.
Hey, Austin.
Austin, we saw Tennessee play the national champion about a month ago. Seems like a year ago when the college football playoff began. In order for Tennessee to get to that level, to the elite level in college football, what's going to happen over these next couple of seasons in your mind to catch up with a team like Ohio State?
Well, I think you got to continue to add talent to your roster. That's both in recruiting and in the transfer portal. You've got to continue to develop, and I think at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing is Nico has to take a big step, heading into year 2 as the starter. I think you look at Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, year 1 to year 2 for those particular players, they made huge steps. Now they won the Heisman Trophy in year 2, both of them did. They're both at LSU, but like you look at year 2 for a lot of people in Josh Heupel's system, normally there's a significant jump. And, I think for Nico, this was a great first year. I know some people probably put unwarranted expectations on him because of the NIL contract and all that, but a nice start, but he's got to take a big jump. And if you take an elite jump at quarterback, then I think everything else comes with you. So, the biggest thing I think is Nico taking a jump, but continuing to put talent around him, continuing to develop the talent you have on your roster.
Well, Tennessee did add some talent in the transfer portal as Duke running back Star Thomas commits to the Vols. Austin, what does this staff like about Star Thomas? What ultimately made Tennessee the best fit for him?
A nice combo player, someone who, can do a little bit of everything, a veteran, an older guy in the room, a productive player at Duke at over 1,000 total yards this past year, 800 yards rushing, and, just adds a nice piece to the room to go along with Deshaun Bishop and obviously, Lewis and then those 2 true freshmen. So, I think for Tennessee, to me, it still starts with Peyton Lewis and Deshaun Bishop. Star Thomas has to come in and prove himself here. And you go back a year ago, Tennessee brought in a tight end out of the transfer portal and Holden Stays to go along with Ethan Davis, and then they brought in what most people thought, I included and everybody else, that, another body to help build depth in Miles Kitselman, and then you learn pretty quick in spring, Miles Kitselman's a little better than they realized. And so, is Star Thomas going to be that way? I don't know. We'll see. But again, it's on him to prove it. I think you start with the first 2 and then go from there.
Austin Price of VolQuest and On3 with us this morning. Austin, when you speak about spring practice in this time of year also, man, the major question I have, considering all things I've seen from the Polynesian Bowl to some of the pre-college football playoffs practices, is David Sanders Jr. looks like a left tackle. Or the decision between him as Lance Hurd to switch sides, where are they at on that?
I don't think they've made any kind of call. If you were asking me what they will do, I would say pretty strong possibility that Lance Hurd is your left tackle. Now they've done that. They moved Darnell to the right side. They moved John Campbell to the right side. They've done different things. Gerald Mincy moved to the right side, but I'm just not sure they do that. I'd say Lance Hurd will be your left tackle and David Sanders will be your right tackle if I were a betting man, as we said here on January 21st.
No doubt about it. Also, you mentioned better quarterback play from a guy like Nico Iamaleava. With that being said, do you have an idea what kind of weapon he's going to get out of a guy like Boo Carter, who's won a lot of the hearts of Vols fans? And from my understanding, that was a part of his conversation with Coach Heupel and his staff, is his ability to play both sides.
Yeah, Boo's very dynamic. You go back to the high school ranks, and the kid's special when he's got the ball in his hands. You look at him as a punt returner. He's shifty. He can kind of, get in and out of the phone booth, so to speak, and not get tackled. And I think to see him at this level, we've seen what he can do on punt returns, but we've not seen him on offense yet. So, I don't want to put too much pressure on the kid, but I think the kid can definitely be an asset on the offensive side of the ball for Tennessee. And I think you'll continue to see him get some work there. I do think Jermon McCoy's injury, though, has put a little more pressure on him on the defensive side of the ball, because they're going to need both he and Ricky Gibson to be really, really good at their spots now until Jermod can get healthy while they find kind of Jermod's temporary replacement.
Austin Price, our good friend of VolQuest, joining us this morning on RKW. You mentioned the transfer portal addition of Duke running back Star Thomas. In addition to that, the two other players they have had added so far, offensive lineman Wendell Moe and wide receiver from Alabama, Amari Jefferson. Austin, do you foresee when that portal opens back up in April, any other changes or additions, I should say? And if anything, where do they need them?
Yeah, technically, like, you have Notre Dame and Ohio State who have their 5-day windows opening up today. So does anybody on those two teams enter the portal that might catch Tennessee's eye that, Tennessee would have interest in going after? We'll see. But yeah, if they don't get anybody in this window, then obviously it would be the spring window. I think a lot of it, I think they'll definitely add a receiver. They got to have more than 7 bodies. Preferably, you'd love to add one now, but, does anybody enter that you could go after and potentially land? It's, if not, you're looking at 7 bodies for the spring, 4 of which have never played a college down. Two of the other 3 have played very little, and then Chris Brazel being the third. And, so you've got some question marks at receiver. And then, what do they look like if they're not able to add an offensive lineman between now and, let's say, next weekend? What does that look like in the spring? Does Tennessee feel comfortable coming out of the spring, or do they feel like they need to go get somebody? We'll see kind of how it all transpires. But I don't think Tennessee's technically done before spring ball starts, because I think there's possibilities, with these two teams that you could see somebody go in the portal that Tennessee might have interest in. And then, after that, I think a lot of it depends on how you feel coming out of spring.
Austin, when you look at the roster right now, and I know there's still going to be some changes, but in terms of experience, maybe what position do you feel comfortable at with just that depth and experience going into next year?
Well, I think you feel really good at tight end.
Yeah.
At least I do. I think you feel pretty good about the offensive line. I think you still feel pretty good about the defensive line. Linebacker, I think there's some real quality depth there. Now, it's young depth, and so, there's some inexperience there that you'll have to work through. I would have told you corner, and nickel until Jermiah McCoy got hurt, but then that got a little more thin. Now, again, how quick can he get back? Everybody heals at a different rate. As Jason Swain has said, Amari Rogers tore his ACL in the spring at Clemson, had an incredible recovery, was back for the first game. There's that. Then there are guys that, take a full 9-10 months to come back. So, where's Jermon McCoy at in that healing process? Is he a quick healer? Is he a slow healer? Every kid's different. And so, I think those are probably the main positions I'm looking at. Running back is one where I feel like Tennessee's okay there, but to me there's still some unproven players at running back, and I think, you want to continue to see those guys grow.
Austin, do you think Tennessee was hurt by being in the college football playoff and having to recruit the portal at the same time? And do you feel like they have regrets about just how quickly they were able to hit the ground running while they were preparing for a first-round game in Columbus?
No, I don't think so. I think you could obviously debate that all day long, Will, but I think for Tennessee, at that point in time, it was more about roster retention than it was roster addition. And, they were trying to lock in some of the players that they're going to need, next fall that were on their current team. And I think that's the hard part of all this, is you have all these negotiations going on and potential players coming in and out for visits, and you're trying to prepare for a game. And that don't even count your early enrollees getting here all that same week too and going through things. So just again, that's why you've seen a lot of coaches try to push for this calendar change to where you don't have free agency during the season. Like that, it's just really, really difficult. And so I think, I don't think they regret anything. Again, I think the biggest thing was roster retention, and I think they've done a pretty good job of keeping everybody that they wanted to keep at Tennessee.
Austin, it's incredible the pathway Harrison Bailey has taken to get to Florida. And it's interesting, we're now in an era in college football where you are willing to pay to get a transfer in to be a backup to a very established starter. Tennessee has not gone that route at quarterback specifically. Without Gaston Moore backing up Nico Iamaleava next season, how comfortable do you think Josh Heupel and his staff are with Jake Merklinger and the incoming freshman George McIntyre and the options they have in that room behind Nico?
I think you have to be very comfortable. I mean, Jake will be in year 2 in the system and, talented kid. At some point, he was going to be able to get past Gaston. And so, for Gaston, I think he's, still trying to find his future home and, go play somewhere and, give him a chance to be on the field, which is something that he really wanted. And realistically, probably wanted it a year ago, but Tennessee was able to convince him to come back and be Nico's backup. And that proved to be a crucial part. I mean, he got a whole second half against an SEC team because Nico got hurt and, did pretty well. And so I think for Josh Heupel and company, I think this is the deepest the room has been since Joe was backing up Hendon and you had Taven Jackson as the number 3. 3 quality bodies, 3 highly rated guys. Now, the experience isn't necessarily there with Merklinger or George, but the talent is there. And so I think that, again, I think this room is deeper than it's been the last 2 years.
Austin, when you're looking at the guys that have departed this year, whether it be Cooper, whether that be Omar Norman, just who's got the biggest, void to be filled as it pertains to that group right there as, guys
Cooper.
that are leaving out? Is Cooper?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, he's been your starter at center for 4 years. Josh Heupel and Glenn Ellerby have been here for 4 years, going into year 5, and this is the first time they've had to forcibly make a change at center, right? Cooper got hurt a little bit, had put Ollie Lane at center or Jerome Carvin because Cooper had an ankle. But, Cooper's always been there, and now Cooper's not there. And so you forcibly have to change to somebody else. Is that William Satterwhite? Is it Max Anderson? Is it Jesse Perry? Is it somebody else? Time will tell. But, I think ultimately, I think that's the biggest replacement you have because Cooper just carried himself. The kid was a finalist for the Remington Award for the nation's top center. I'm not saying he can't be replaced because every player can be replaced, but it's going to be interesting to see when they're there's no more Javonte Spraggins. There's there's no more Cooper Mays. There's no more Big O. There's some change out there that's kind of forced upon them, and so it will be interesting to see Glenn Ellerby adapts to a new offensive line without guys he's only known since he's been here.
No doubt about it. One guy that I'm expecting a lot from because the conversation I've had surrounding this young man, and the freak athlete that he is and how young he is, Jordan Ross can take a big step for this team. I know he got a block punt this year, and I know he also had a penalty on punts too. But all I've heard is he doesn't understand what he doesn't understand about himself yet, and he could be that type of guy.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. They need he and Caleb Herring to take steps, right? You're losing James Pierce. Josh Josephs becomes, option 1 at that spot. And then who is option 2?
Yeah.
Caleb Herring probably gets the first crack, but Jordan Ross is a young kid with a ton of talent, and he's going to be coming. So Caleb Herring, he's got to have his head on a swivel. And then they need some of these other younger players. At the end of the day, if Tennessee's invested a lot of money NIL-wise in some of these freshmen, they've got to get to the field. And that's something I don't think they've been exactly the best at the last year or two in terms of, kind of taking where their NIL dollars are spent and getting kids to the field pretty quick. Some kids have. Boot Carter, played a ton this year and started a bunch of games, but Mike Matthews did not. So the question is does the philosophy change with some of the players that Tennessee has invested in NIL-wise to get them to the field as quick as possible in 2025?
Yeah.
He is Austin Price of All Quested on 3 Tuesdays at 8:20 here on the show at Austin Priceless, where you follow him on social media. Austin, thank you, sir. Appreciate it as always.
Hey, guys, before I go, just realize it's Tuesday, the 21st of January. This is the first time we spoke to Will Bowling this year. Think about that.
Wow.
Think about that.
That's true. That's very true. Thank you, Austin.
Let that resonate. If I had your life, man, I mean, I'm telling you, if I had your money, Will, I'd burn you.
I'm telling you
See
quickly.
you, everybody.
First time I've heard that.
See, Austin.
Austin Price. I had to go get engaged. Sorry. Had to go secure a fiance on one of those.
Every time you've been out, he's leaned in.
He has.
I'm talking about same foot, same shoulders. Like, where's Will
That's
Bowling
why he fits
at?
perfectly on this show.
Yep.
Where's Will
I was
Bowling
wondering
at?
if that was coming at
I
some
know. I
point.
figured I was going to lean in a little bit, but Austin, pro that he is, let Will know.
I love it.
He leaned in.
I love it. Big discussion on that on the Tennessee front coming up at 9:20 this morning, because I am curious what you guys think on how they get to that next level. I know it's where I started with Austin, but there are going to be so many expectations put on Nico Iamaleava next season. And almost in the same way, we talk about Patrick Mahomes. I know, stick with me here, earlier this morning, that the sign of a great quarterback is making more unproven skill players great. And he will have much more unproven skill players around him next season, starting at running back, where Dylan Sampson leaves a massive void in that offense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think it's a great conversation. It's also a point, too, where rightfully so, Will, the expectations from the fan base are real, though. I mean, you're supposed to. We speak about this in the pros often. The jump from year one to year two, we got to see it, because at that point, it's telling us that you belong. And if you don't, I mean, it's hard to find a pathway to where hope and belief and optimism, if it don't jump out on day one for Nico, I mean, the crowd's going to get loud. There's no time, the way the college football is set up, college football playoffs is set up, that you can just gradually ascend up. No, you got to jump out front early.
Yeah.
Coming up at ESPN.com this morning, Jeremy Fowler has spoken with NFL executives who make predictions about the upcoming offseason, including 2 potential free agent targets that he predicts will not be here. And unfortunately, one of them is Trey Smith. We'll talk about that next. With only 4 teams left in the NFL playoffs, executives are starting to look ahead to 2025. As we wrap up hour number 3 of RKW, 615-737-1045. NFL execs, scouts, and personnel are talking to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, friend of the show, predicting what's going to happen next. I want you guys to give me believable or unbelievable on these predictions. First of which says Sam Darnold will be a Las Vegas Raider.
Believable.
Yes, absolutely believable.
I think it definitely makes sense.
Yep.
Writing at Pick 6, the Raiders are out of range for a quarterback unless they move up, please do, which wouldn't be smart based on the amount of holes they have. A high-ranking personnel man of an NFL team said, quote, they need every pick. They have flexibility within the cap to get it done. Vegas slated to have nearly $100 million in cap space for 2025.
Yep, definitely believable.
They got to have a fix, a quarterback, that's for sure.
They do, and the fact there's no guarantee teams will actually want to dance with them to move up to or how aggressive they want to be.
It could happen.
Yeah, it could, but they're at a point to where they also have to have somewhat of a full reset too and actually say it and do it. Like, they got that palace of a place out west, and it's playing losing football often, and teams just using you or fans of teams are using you as a destination vacation. You don't want that to be your calling point to invite people in.
Prediction number 2 says Aaron Rodgers will retire.
I say believable.
Yeah, I think it makes total sense.
Yeah, I don't know how much he really has left in the tank, and even if he does, like, he's going to last another season anywhere. I mean, he just seems to be done.
I don't think there is an obvious landing spot for him anyway, the same way that the Jets were before. Like, who is willing to really run it back after watching what's happened in New York?
Yeah.
Not me.
I just don't think there's anyone who really wants him.
That's what I was saying. Like, there's a little too much of a stench around like what he's created up there. I know the Achilles ain't his issue or nothing like that, but like that team had what this is supposed to be a veteran Hall of Fame quarterback. Like they looked like a bunch of amateurs up there.
It's not like they didn't have any talent there.
Yeah.
I mean, they had stuff to work with.
And the other part, too, what part of his play are you willing to pay for right now? Not mobile the way he was. Accuracy of what he had going on this year with the parts that he helped bring in. And you also, if you're Chad Brink or Mike Borgonzi right now, are you relinquishing power just to appease him with the players that he wants to come in the building?
Not.
No, I
not here at least.
It's just, speaking in just that way, absolutely not.
At the bottom of that, Jeremy Fowler writes, quarterback-needy teams picking high in this draft, such as the Titans, Browns, and Giants, don't seem too enticing for Rodgers at this stage.
Yeah.
Nah, I'll pass on that one.
Did play well over the final 5 games, Fowler notes. 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 picks. But, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I think
definitely
we're all good on that one.
Another prediction, Steelers will sign Justin Fields and draft a quarterback.
Believable.
I see Justin Fields definitely getting signed. Drafting another quarterback they don't have a backup. Yeah, absolutely they're drafting a quarterback. Yes.
I think you could certainly see a scenario where they are maybe a Jackson Dart suitor.
Okay.
If you really want to go into the 3rd round, a Jalen Milroe suitor. You could build a similar type offense for Jalen Milroe that you would for Justin Fields if you wanted to pair those two guys together.
Are you completely out, just in terms of Pittsburgh right now, on Russ going back at all?
Somewhat, yeah. I'm more out than in on him being the quarterback of the future. When you got a young talent like Justin Fields, at some point you got to start buying into it too. And that's where, for me, if Arthur Smith doesn't get hired in one of these head coaching jobs, I don't think he is this cycle anyway right now, then he's also got to craft an offense that suits Justin Fields. So that's where I am on him.
Yeah, the Russell Wilson experience was, I think, one that met expectations in Pittsburgh. It wasn't a failure, but it wasn't overwhelmingly a success either. It was a low-risk move for really cheap, and you knew you had a younger guy in Fields who's 11 years younger, who you could give the keys to moving forward. But an NFL scouting director tells ESPN.com, I still think this could go either way. Quote, part of me feels like they bring back Russell. Either way, I expect them to draft a quarterback fairly high. They need someone who can be the answer long term. They have the number 21 pick in April.
You know what sucks about Justin Fields' situation, though? 4-2 when he pretty much just got sat for growth.
Exactly.
The business of football, though, minimize his earning potential just because of that benching right there. Like, what if Justin had actually went out and killed it? He goes to potentially getting $50 million a year to now, hey, we'll give you just transition starter money, and if you do well, then we'll give you an escalator. Same as like the Love situation in Green Bay. It just that's the business that we don't speak about enough as fans.
This next one's fun. Prediction: Colts will end 11-year AFC South championship drought.
Unbelievable. Not believable. Whatever.
Thank you, Bert.
Exactly. That's how we feel about that.
We do this every offseason.
Except for they did add a good coach on the defensive side.
Yeah, Lou Anarumo, the new defensive coordinator. A high-ranking NFL official says, quote, they've drafted pretty well, so the roster isn't barren. Adding a few more pieces and supporting Anthony Richardson could go a long way, and that division is very winnable. I don't disagree with that. I just think Anthony Richardson's that bad.
That's what I'm on, Will.
He is hopeless.
He's not convinced me that he's anything in terms of a starter.
What year 2 jump did he actually make?
He didn't.
Yeah.
And he was injured again.
He jumps to the bench when he got tired mid-drive.
And that as well.
He got bench more than anything.
I actually think that's who the Steelers should trade for. You should trade for Anthony Richardson. Give him a shot.
As a Ravens fan, Robert Walsh, you know the Steelers to trade for Anthony Richardson.
I just think you should give him a shot.
I got a hot take for you. I'm not sure you're willing to hear it. Well, I'm going to do it anyway because your team lost. This is where I'm headed.
Too soon.
The same loud crowd that has been asking for Mike Tomlin to be fired need to also holler at John Harbaugh too.
Well, don't worry. They are. They are.
Are they really?
Yes, of course. Like dumb fans.
Oh, bring him over here.
You're right. Who would not want a John Harbaugh?
God, I love that.
He could assist John Fossil as special teams coach.
There you go.
Seriously.
Bring him over.
So y'all, Baltimore fans are barking loud about that.
They want Mark Andrews cut. They want John Harbaugh fired. Like they're got their pitchforks ready to rabble rouse a town, but then they'll shut up when it gets to draft time.
Right.
Yeah,
they got to just say something.
I love how it goes, though. But I will say, considering he's got a potential 3-time MVP and also waiting 2 years for Derek, that one right there shocked me. There was no way that was a situation I saw going like it did in Buffalo.
Other predictions, and one that is of local interest, says Bears will sign Trey Smith in free agency.
Ooh.
That would make sense.
They got a right guard for Void, too.
Would make sense.
They need major upgrades,
An NFL
too.
personnel evaluator says, quote, they need help there at guard after the Nate Davis fiasco, and Trey is far and away the best option, and they probably need more than him. So at the skill positions, they're pretty good. Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift, TJ Moore, Roma Dunze, free agent guard Kevin Zeitler, familiar face to Ben Johnson. He's been in Detroit. But Ryan Poles and his connection to Kansas City, who was in that front office when Kansas City drafted Trey Smith, will add them to the mix of suitors for a guy that Titans fans rightfully want to bring home.
Yeah.
Chicago is fifth in cap space coming up in free agency with $69 million to spend.
It's totally believable. I just want to believe it's here, not there.
Other predictions, DK Metcalf will be traded from Seahawks to Chargers.
Nah.
Thought that was interesting.
Believable.
Tyreek Hill will be traded from Dolphins to Patriots.
Ooh.
That makes sense to me. You know why?
Weird.
Send them to a place that's colder than Miami, and that's on a long way up from winning. Yeah.
I know, right?
No, y'all think I'm like, the coaches are petty.
I feel like he'd be
petty.
so mad.
It's funny. Tyreek Hill got exactly what he asked for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He won a Super Bowl. Then he asked to get paid.
Yep.
What happens when you choose one over the other? You go to a team that is a 9-10, or less win team. That's what you are in Miami.
Exactly.
But that's what you wanted when you got paid, because those are the teams that are willing to pay you.
Come on, send them to a cold weather place. Do exactly that. You don't control where you go in trades most times.
615-737-1045. Go ahead, Bert.
Quick note on the way out. Do you know the last time a wide receiver changed hands between those two teams?
Miami and New England?
Wouldn't be Danny Amendola, would it?
Okay, it was the second to last time this season.
Okay.
It wasn't Danny Amendola.
Okay.
It was Isaiah Ford, was a 6th-round pick. But Wes Welker.
Oh, yeah, right.
Another
shout.
another little slot guy.
Good shout. Coming up, Ben Johnson, speaking of Chicago, lands with Caleb Williams and the Bears. Some of the reporting around that decision should make you feel better about one of your rivals in the AFC South. We got that for you coming up next.
What's going on, you bunch of hooligans? 9:02, good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. The Buckeyes become the first two-loss national champion in 18 years with the 34-23 win over Notre Dame. Ohio State, the far better team than the Fighting Irish in the first 40 minutes of the game, but needed to stave off a late push from Notre Dame to get the victory. Notre Dame was 16 points in the second half, but it was not enough. The Titans hiring former Cowboys special teams coordinator John Fossil for the same position. Tom Pelissero reported yesterday. Fossil had coached the special teams for the Ravens, the Raiders, and the Rams. He was the interim head coach for the Rams after the firing of Jeff Fisher in 2016. But conflicting reports on Colt Anderson if he had been let go. Buck Rising reporting that he has not been retained or released, but that indication has not yet been made. He could be retained or released, rather. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
And the show rolls on into hour number 4, kicking off your Tuesday morning that kind of feels like a Monday for many of us. 615-737-1045. How you jump in? What is preventing Tennessee from competing for a national championship? We'll open up that discussion coming up in 15 minutes. Your thoughts in the YouTube comment section as well. And if you're there, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out, free to you, and it takes about the sound or the amount of time that it's taken for me to say this sentence. 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, where you watch the show. So Ben Johnson has landed in Chicago, the Lions OC, who was the orchestrator of some of the best offenses in Detroit history. 3 of the 4 highest scoring seasons in Detroit's 95-year history, to be exact, came under Ben Johnson. He is now the head coach of the Bears. And Diana Rossini says the Jags wanted him, but the feeling was not mutual. Quote, the Jags were also interested in Ben Johnson, but Diana says, I'm told the setup wasn't in line with what he was looking for. In his first head coaching job, Ben Johnson picked the Bears because of the quarterback. It's that simple.
Sometimes you just don't get picked. A story I know all too well. It's like my dating history in high school. Just not what I'm looking for.
Right?
Well, close your eyes, baby. Come on.
The setup wasn't in line with what prospective young women for Robert Walsh's life were looking for.
Hey, look, it's all right,
It happens
Bert.
to all of us, Bert. Believe me, you're not the only one.
You end up where you're supposed to end up.
I mean, I can't relate.
Will's
I'm glad
like,
you were getting all the girls
Will
in
is like
high school.
Absolutely,
Will's the
you know
Chicago
me.
Bears. He's like, he got his pick of the litter, man.
Absolutely.
He knew where he was going to end up.
No doubt about it, Bert.
I'm being as sarcastic as possible for those of you who can't detect that.
You were undrafted free agent, Bert. That's all it is, man.
That's cool with me. I'll work my way up.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And now you
exactly.
got the
Look at
girl
you.
you need.
Yep, and now I got a whole nother year to
I
wait
know,
on
I was
that
going to say,
ring.
and you don't have to put a finger.
Gosh, she was crying after that
Ring on the
game.
finger.
Yeah, I was crying.
I
I was
bet
like,
she
I was like,
was.
it's going to be okay, baby.
I was
They got a
crying
good
for her.
core. They'll be back. And she was like, no, I wanted the ring. That's too bad.
Damn, Cheyenne, I was
wait.
in your corner.
Why you give her the ugly cry like that?
Well, she ain't a pretty crier, you know? I ain't never seen nobody pretty
Who
cry,
is
by
a
the
pretty
way.
crier?
I can't
that
stand
whole
it.
phrase, ugly crier, what the hell does that
No,
mean?
can't
you know what I
stand
like.
crying.
Like, come on.
There's crying where like you cover your face and you whimper a little bit, and then there's Lord, take him out of the casket cry. Like,
Mascara running.
Take me too. Take me too.
get your ass in there, then.
Throw the dirty in.
Snot coming out of the nose.
I am also an ugly crier.
Ugly crying, Kayla. Yes.
I used to have that thing back in the day where you'd be crying over something and you try to talk. I can't talk. That used to happen to me bad as a kid.
Hyperventilating.
Bad as a kid.
when the belt used to just give me more
Oh,
lashes.
yeah.
You better quit all that crying before I give you something to cry about. I'm trying.
You're out of breath, right?
You're beating me. If I don't cry, it's going to be worse. So I'm not. I turned out fine. Okay, I turned out fine.
I got beat too with the swatch.
that is awesome right
belt.
there. That is awesome right. Listen, bless you. Okay, because there's different ways. I'm sure you got it though. Don't act like you got all scotch free over here.
Don't worry about it.
Some people got opinions about that. No, I'm playing. With that being said, though, what were we talking about?
I don't even know.
Talking about the Jags and the fact that Ben Johnson did not want them.
We got real
Don't
far.
worry, I'm good.
There it is.
I was ready.
To that point about it not being set up right, is it because he thinks Trevor Lawrence too far gone to retool?
Because Trent Baalke's the GM.
Yeah.
What kind of fatal flaw is that? I mean, seriously, come on. Like, why not just change the entire thing? He is a part of this thing unless they said, well, you're not the problem, the coaches are. Well, why would a coach come and let you blame them again if Trent's bulletproof like that? That's weird to me. Mm-hmm. And especially considering the division. I mean, I think it's easier to win here in the AFC South now.
It is.
As opposed to going up against Detroit, Minnesota,
and Green Bay.
Green Bay.
But it's just it's not a job that people want. And you look at the guys that have gone there, most recently Doug Peterson, like he has a good track record for the most part. Yeah. He couldn't do it with the number 1 overall pick quarterback. He tried, right? But it's almost like that has a thing on your forehead saying don't go here. And again, they're going to pick from the bottom of the barrel of coaches again, I feel like.
For a first-time head coach, that's a cocky pick right there.
It is huge for Caleb Williams and massive for his development as a quarterback to have Ben Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
No, it is 100%
significant.
It is going into year 2 of this thing. I mean, he's still fixable. We spoke about it a little bit in the hallway.
He was fine as a rookie.
He didn't have a terribly bad year. I think their team and structure of it was bad, but like he made plays for him. He got to figure out the pocket and NFL speed and stuff. But he got it together though.
I think what I'm interested about with Ben Johnson is clearly he has the offensive mind. He helped develop, even more so Eric Goff than he almost lost his confidence, right? When he was traded in that first year in Detroit, he helped kind of rebuild him back. And this offense has been incredibly fun to watch, and he's been a part of it. It's been productive. But what is he going to be like now as the head coach? We haven't seen like much of the personality of Ben Johnson because he's been behind a Dan Campbell type of personality. Yeah. So I'm interested in, I think he'll help this offense and Caleb Williams, but how is he going to be portrayed overall as a head coach, and how is he going to run this team as a head coach? He's still very young. 38 years old. Yeah. I look at it as kind of like a Callahan situation, but obviously Callahan was not technically, calling plays and everything.
I think he gets the same respect as DeMeco Ryans got. Mm-hmm. I do. I think he's somewhat proven. DeMeco went into Houston. Everybody somewhat figured he'd be a good coach. I think Ben Johnson goes into that Bears den and do exactly the same thing. It's just where's his crucial key wins are going to come from, especially when it's the NFC North as strong as they are right now.
Bad news for the Titans. There is a new betting favorite to be the head coach of the Cowboys, and it is not Deion Sanders.
Oh.
It is a guy who Ian Rappaport says 2 minutes ago is expected to interview for the vacant head coaching position. Offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer looking like the new favorite to be the head coach in Dallas.
Wow.
It's their own OC.
Okay. That kind of came out of, we were talking about Deion Sanders, obviously, but then also, I just blanked on his name. Kellen Moore. Yeah. As being
Kellen
a guy
Moore,
they
Robert
like.
Saleh. A couple of guys that I think are interesting.
It's also how you judge what Kellen Moore's done.
Jerry doesn't take risks at head coach.
No, I guess not.
This is his track record. He goes with the safe option a lot. And I think he has a reputation of being this crazy, kind of erratic general manager. And some of his comments in the media warrant that. Mm. But in terms of the actual decision-making, oftentimes I think he's too cautious in a lot of the things that he does. And this would be in line with that line of thinking as well.
Is it because he lives his life in media also?
I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Jerry hears and got to answer a lot of questions as it pertains to the moves he make. I honestly don't know what to say about Schottenheimer.
He's been around for so long, but it's not an upgrade from Mike McCarthy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's kind of like going from Mike Vrabel to Brian Callahan. You might be raising the ceiling of somebody younger who's more inexperienced, but you're also lowering the floor.
Yeah.
I just got to ask, what
Taking risk.
What do the Dallas Cowboys need, though? Do they need a jolt of like newness? Because when you hire a guy that's inside the building, it's somewhat more of the same. It's what you're getting yourself into.
You don't want to know my answer.
Yeah, no, we got to know your answer.
It has to do with Jerry Jones, so you can take it where you want to on that.
What as far as Jerry goes?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to win a Super Bowl in Jerry's time as the guy in charge.
That's tough.
Dude.
So move on.
I ain't gonna say it's time. You can't live in your fears.
And he's not going to move on until he actually
You're not saying you're wishing he's dead.
Yeah.
You're just saying until he's not in charge anymore, it's hard to see them getting back to where they were when he was at his best.
Opinion.
Yeah, I know. That's my opinion too. I agree. I'm with you.
That's crazy for him to be at this spot. I guess Schottenheimer, it means the floor still remains the same. Like at least you won't dip below where you are in your waning years of life if we're going that route with Jerry Jones.
It's probably a safer choice out of coaches who had never been a head coach before, too, being the son of Marty Schottenheimer.
Yep.
So, like, he has more familiarity with running teams and that sort of things of that ilk. You know what I mean?
I do think it is bad news for the Titans because of the option of Deion Sanders shockingly getting that job and paying you a king's ransom for the number 1 overall pick. But you may not even want to do that anyway because you have to move back to 12 and you're probably getting a guy with a second-round grade if you did that anyway. So, interesting. Coming up, back to college football discussion with the college football playoff championship last night. How far away is Tennessee from the elite level? Are they closer or are they further away than where they were when the season ended a couple of weeks ago and the transfer portal opened? That's next. Hour 4 on your Tuesday morning, RKW, Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. The college football offseason officially here. Kind of get through the end of a championship game like that, you start to get sad. Like, oh yeah, I'm not going to hear a marching band at a football game for a while.
We got to go
Be a few months.
Not going to wait in the line for a bathroom for 30 minutes for a while.
That's a good thing.
Or at Ohio State for an hour for a while.
I'm forced to act like you like your significant other's hobbies for like 6 months.
This is where relationships get stronger, baby. Absolutely.
Or have to console our significant other because their team is that bad.
Yeah. Is that part of it
I.e.
too?
Auburn.
Auburn. Ooh. Well, look, they're in the portal and getting a whole lot of high school prospects
We'll see.
right now.
Want to talk about what Tennessee needs to do in order to get to the Ohio State level. But first, let's go back to the phones where Anthony is in Nashville up next. What's up, Anthony?
Hey, thank you for taking my call. I wanted to talk about Will Howard and his performance last night. I thought he managed the game real well. He threw for 2 touchdowns, high completion percentage, no picks. As he went through his progressions real well, and I watched his eyes. He was going through and just not staring down any particular receivers. He seemed to make all the throws. Just a very good performance, and I wonder what you thought of him as a possible prospect at quarterback for the Titans.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate the call. Amazingly, you are the second person to call in and ask that this morning. And understandably so, right? He played well through the college football playoff. If you're not a NFL draft junkie, you might think, hey, what am I missing?
Yeah.
What does this guy not have that other guys do? He did complete his first 13 passes last night in the national championship game. Ramon, from your perspective, being someone that played in the NFL, what does he not have that quarterback prospects need? Because ultimately, yes, he did lead this team to a national title, but is seen still as a 5th or 6th round pick prospect by most analysts.
Proof that he elevates a team. If we're asking to take Will Howard in like the 3rd or 4th round, I'm cool. I'm all right with that. Let him see what he turns out to be. But I don't think people understand how heavy of a pick the number 1 overall selection is. That's my biggest issue. Like with Will Howard is, okay, did he do this at Kansas State? No. Of course, almost most quarterbacks that are competent enough will do this at Ohio State. That's my biggest contingency on him. Like, is this the floor for him moving forward, that he's going to be a great game manager, that he's not going to have turnovers, that he's going to be very selective on when he run and when he decides to check the football down?
Yeah.
Like, again, we got to also remember, too, like Chip Kelly is calling the plays as it pertains to this guy's ability to run an offense. I'm not saying that Will Howard can't. We saw, I guess, a good situation at Ohio State where he's capable of doing and managing. But, like, at the number 1 overall pick, y'all, let's, change our expectations and just standard for that pick, too. Like, this is supposed to be a franchise-changing selection. I was told by somebody that's been in the game for a very long time, and most coaches will tell you, when you're picking in the top 5, them dudes get off the bus ready to go. Yeah. It's Will Howard ready to go, getting off the bus.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, too. You know, in terms of watching a championship team do what they do, and rightfully so, they did it throughout the whole playoff, and he played pretty well. It is easy to fall in love with somebody in that moment, but it doesn't mean they're going to be an NFL quarterback. I mean, the last quarterback to win it for Ohio State before that, 2014, Cardell Jones. He wasn't even the starter to start the season, and he was able to do it when it mattered, but it didn't make him a great NFL quarterback, right? So you have to look at the overall body of work over time, and I just don't think Howard has that quite to be a number 1 or for even first round pick.
James Foster, No Flags Film on Twitter, does some stuff for the 33rd team, has worked for A to Z Sports as well, does a ton of draft and film breakdown, has Will Howard as an early 5th round grade as his number 6 quarterback behind Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jalen Milroe, Dylan Gabriel, and Jackson Dart.
Mm-hmm. And has he helped his stock? Absolutely. This run has absolutely helped his stock. Right.
He will get drafted now.
Yep.
I went into it thinking, again, I'm more of a Will Howard guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's his name? Riley Leonard. The way he ran the ball last night as opposed to Will Howard, in my personal opinion.
James has him as a late 6th round grade. Him and Quinn Ewers around the same spot.
Are they really? Quinn Ewers?
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked. Yeah, that's
Totally.
The only reason I bring that up is as much fanfare was around him going to Ohio State, him getting a car deal and truck and just millions of dollars to go there, and to actually just be thrown into a 6th-round pick. Like, stars, what are they in the beginning of recruiting?
But I think he lived up to that hype as a college quarterback.
You do? Okay.
I don't think you have to view everything in the prism of NFL potential to determine whether or not someone was a successful college player.
Yeah.
He led Texas back to the semifinals back-to-back seasons. Quinn Ewers was a success at Texas.
Only thing that I'll push back on that is this. Those 5 stars are tracked from the moment they graduate all the way through the NFL, though, too. And that, to me, is where the fairness of, like, expectation for a 5-star, like Walter Nolan has gotten to that point that he's going to end up potentially being the first round as a 5-star. It's one that comes off top.
I just don't like viewing college players as successful or unsuccessful based on what they're going to be at the next level. I think you can be a great college player, and that can just be the end of the discussion. You were a great college player.
Stetson Bennett was a walk-on, though. Like, as far as expectations.
Stetson Bennett was a great college player.
He led him to championships.
But my thing is, see, this is where it's just different for me to be like, okay, if you're him, I need to see that, like, from the gate, and I need to see that all the way throughout, too, because the ones that are that good, and it's probably skewed for me because of how the recruiting cycle is and ratings and whatnot. But, like, I've heard time and time again, a lot of these outlets will give guys stars just based on familiarity. And that's why I feel like he and a few other these quarterbacks that come through are, okay, we're just familiar. You've been in this camp a lot of times. Well, we'll give you the 5th star. Like, no, like, I'm with you. He brought Texas up, but Texas also has one of those Ohio State rosters, too. It was one of them, hey, don't mess it up situations.
For sure.
I mean, Carson Beck's that guy, too.
Yeah, Carson, I mean, he's the other one. I mean, I'll
and
put
now
it
he's
this way.
getting paid a ton of money to go to Miami to what, be subpar?
Quinn Ewers got kicked out for Arch Manning. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's that to me. Like, if he was that good, I think he should be able to come back. But salute to him. You're right. He's still going to be a draftable quarterback.
So what does Tennessee need to do to close the gap to Ohio State? We saw them on the field together. Obviously, it is the most challenging thing in college football to go from great to elite. And that is the process that Tennessee is now in. Tennessee is a great college football program today. What do they do to take that next step? What has to happen?
For me, I think retaining talent is going to be huge. And I'm talking about the guys that recruit out of high school, too. I think that's you brought it up earlier, Will. Like, looking at Ohio State's roster, the last time you're able to have 3 and 4-year guys stay on your team to help solidify what you are as a school, as a football team, has to be case number 1. And Coach Hype and them have done that so far in their careers. It ain't been many. Squirrel I can get leaving. Other guys, Jay Jenkins leaving, I get it. Like, there's a logjam at the defensive tackle spots and stuff like that. But moving forward, you have to be in a position where your guys remain your guys in that system. If it's all predicated on Hype being able to incorporate those guys, well, that system of players that you go recruit must be the guys that are making plays for you, too, with a sprinkle of a transfer here or there. It has to be that. And on top of that, too, the elevation of defensive recruits and portal guys must be high caliber. That's the only way you're going to survive this retention of your guys if the Hypo system is meant to work moving forward for the Vols.
I think you need to figure out who you are on offense. Just find what is the exact identity. Or is it what it was 2 years ago under Hendon Hooker? Is it, what they're doing this year, but adding some better parts to make it, what you want it to be? And that's the thing. You look at Ohio State, they added a big free agent in Chip Kelly this past season to elevate that offense to where they needed it to be, because they knew their defense, they had that, right? And I think Tennessee, as long as they, you said keep stacking,
retooling, keep stacking, reloading. Yep.
Then you're comfortable on that side of the ball. But get some, maybe an elite wide receiver. I mean, that's something that they had an elite running back, 2 of them. They had elite wide receivers, 2 of them. Your quarterback had more experience, which I think that's going to happen next year. I think Nico Iamaleava, I truly feel he's going to take a jump forward next year. But I think you really need to identify what are you offensively as a football team so that can be more consistent than what it has been.
Do you feel like Tennessee is closer to that or further away from championship levels since the season ended?
I think they're closer, to be quite honest with you. Because the issues that you ran into, you recognize like you weren't talent-wise, you weren't there as far as Ohio State goes. Like, we can't be dismissive on what they did this past year. We can't. Georgia, okay, cool. Arkansas game, you can't let that slip happen. As far as the way I feel about it, well, I do side with Kale on this one. I think the issues that Tennessee have are more in-house than it is, hey, we're just getting bodied. Georgia, cool. But you also look at the way the regular season went for the Vols. They were able to win tight games. They were able to just grit it out. Defensively, they won too. And to the point about like adding legs or finding specific playmakers for your team, if there's a hot hand, go with them. Last night I felt like watching Ohio State, they made plays for Jeremiah Smith.
Yes.
It's Heupel and his crew self-scouting themselves and being honest and real with, hey, how do we facilitate our star players? If Austin Price brought that up with us also, like, those guys that you're getting and paying NIL money to earlier in their careers, how are you putting them in place to be successful and showing that, look, if you come here, you're going to get what you were told in recruiting? That's, to me, where I feel like if they're going to go and pour into a Mike Matthews this offseason, show it. Show us, hey, in a game, you're going to get yours more than just, hey, the system is going to work for us. No, sometimes guys need to know, especially wide receivers, I am important to you during the week and on the weekends. That's where I feel like, well, I'm not worried as far as the Vols go competing in the trenches or through the air. It's a matter of the system for me.
Sure.
I don't think they have an identity crisis on offense, and disagree with the comment on YouTube that says we need that Hendon Hooker paced offense back at Tennessee. I don't agree with that, because the defense was better when you weren't having that warp speed offensive tempo. So you were a better overall football team by deciding we're more 12 personnel, slow it down a little bit, run the football, complement your defense. Where I think they have trouble is one of two things has to happen. Either they have to get Heisman-level quarterback play again out of Nico Iamaleava to go with the roster that's currently constructed, or the roster around the quarterback just simply has to get better. And to me, Tennessee is still losing too many recruiting battles with teams that have now caught up with them in the NIL space. I think Tennessee is further away from elite today than they were the day after they lost to Ohio State, because Tennessee has not addressed its needs in the transfer portal the way a lot of their rivals have.
Right.
I'm a little concerned about the inexperience that Tennessee has at major positions like running back and wide receiver, center and guard. I mean, they lost out on Josh Thompson, who picked LSU over them at the 11th hour. They lost out on Emmanuel Pregnon, the lineman who picks Oregon over them. They are often the bridesmaid and not the bride. So that's all fine if you get Hendon Hooker level quarterback play that Tennessee didn't get out of Nico Iamaleava this past season. The caveat to that is that's a really high expectation for a quarterback that was starting for the first time this year. And I think the positive for Tennessee fans is you will get closer to Hendon Hooker out of Nico next season than you did this season. Mm-hmm. And this is where Nico Iamaleava has to live up to his price tag. And it's unfair to him. I get it. He did not choose to get offered the $8 million that's been reported out there. But that is the reality of the situation that he is in. He is a big name with a lot of hype, with a lot of pressure, and a lot of NIL dollars behind him. He has got to live up to that next season for Tennessee to meet its expectations, because according to 247 Sports Talent Composite, Tennessee was the 17th best roster in college football this year. Even without spectacular quarterback play, Tennessee is still punching above its weight in terms of how good their roster is. So I think both things need to be true a little bit. Tennessee has got to do a better job recruiting high school players. They did that this year. Top 10 recruiting class. They're at their 10th, but they're right there still within that conversation, and they've got to get more out of Nico Iamaleava.
I'd much rather have it this way, though, a steady climb up. I thought a little bit of last year, too, whether it was Nico computing or the fact that Heupel kept the box small as far as the play selection goes. I viewed it exactly as that. That's why I'm more optimistic and say you're closer to actually seeing better quarterback play and efficiency of the offense, because whether it be true or not about Nico being recruited to Miami, like, I'm sure somebody called. I'm sure somebody listened. And at that point right there, I feel like Nico and his father, who's very much present in his life, and I would expect his career too, is probably asking for some of the same things that we are too. Like the jump. Yes, personally for Nico's got to be there. Of all the teams that made it to the college football playoffs, Tennessee had the youngest. And if we believe that guys like progressively get better, then I'm of the mindset that why not pour into the belief that it will be a better offensive product?
Sure. I just don't know who he's throwing the ball to.
Exactly. That's why. And
it's
I named
major question mark, the wide receiver position. They still need to add a legitimate starting wide receiver in the transfer portal
that has some experience. Exactly. I mean, because just as he's got to elevate his guys around him, Nico Yamaliava, you've got to have somebody too that can make those plays for you, right? That can go up and be the aggressive wide receiver who's going to win the battles. And I feel like you got to get somebody.
That's fair. So if that's the case, then Notre Dame, Ohio State, let's see. And then there's also the April transfer opening too, right?
I think
Correct.
Tennessee will shop on Ohio State and Notre Dame's rosters. I know there is some buzz around Carnell Tate, the wide receiver 3 for Ohio State, entering the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. A guy who is going to be stuck behind Jeremiah Smith his whole time as a Buckeye and maybe wants to be a number 1. Tennessee was right in the mix in that recruitment. I mean, every player on every roster has the ability to leave, and there's a 5-day window that starts today for Ohio State and Notre Dame. I think Tennessee would be aggressive in pursuing him if he did become available.
They got to, if that's the case. If that's the belief, and Austin said, yeah, you need more than 7 wide receivers on the roster. If that is the case, Tennessee, you must lean in. You got to lean in like Auburn is right now as it pertains to guys going into the portal. Absolutely.
You've been selective, and I was curious when I asked that question to Austin about, like, do you think Tennessee regretted not hitting the portal faster while they were preparing for Ohio State? And Austin said no, which makes me think that this was kind of their plan all along, to not just take a guy to take a guy until you really feel like it's a good fit and you need to take a guy. Yeah. Let's go to Lee in Mount Juliet up next on the phones this morning. Hey, Lee.
Hey, guys. Man, y'all, I think y'all kind of talking yourselves out of this the more you talk. No offense, but y'all did not have a Heisman quarterback who competed at that level other than in D2 games. You don't have a Heisman Trophy quarterback that's playing at that level. The other thing is, your transfer portal, boys, y'all are so far behind the 8 ball, man. Y'all did nothing. You have no wide receiver. You got your defense. But what is special other than your QB who could be special?
You just said he wasn't.
Huh?
You just said he wasn't.
Special? No, I'm saying he could be special. Is what I'm saying. He could be special, but he hasn't been yet. He has the talent, but he hasn't been yet. What's going to make y'all take that leap next year is my question.
Well, we just actually talked about that. Is finding some better skill players, first of all, and maybe that does come in the transfer portal. You're right. They haven't done as much as maybe they would have liked to have done in the portal, but there's still opportunity to add somebody. But also, it was Nico's first year, too. There's also been quarterbacks that don't have to be Heisman Trophy winners to take their team to the national championship. Will Howard. So there's still, this is why we're addressing this right now. Like, that's what they need. They need better play out of him, and they need to add some better parts in terms of the skilled players around him.
Yeah, it was just funny. Again, appreciate the call, but it was somewhat funny to me. He said there's no Heisman caliber quarterback that you're playing with, but then also say he has the ability to be one. So you're telling me is essentially what we've just said. Also, there's room.
Just rephrase exactly what we said.
Yeah, there's room for growth and the expectation that he's to get better. That's, to me, is the biggest point. Like, yes, the weapons are that most quarterbacks have is what makes them. Nobody wants to say that. I've always said, though, good quarterbacks win half the games themselves. Everybody else got to go play their other role.
I think Josh Heupel also has to ask himself, do I have a championship-level offensive coaching staff?
Absolutely. That's part of it. Is Joey Halsley the guy, right?
I think it's less about him. I think it's more about who your O-line coach is who was in his wedding.
I agree. I 100%. I'm on board
but
with that one.
He is so...
And Glenn Ellerby.
Like, not going to fire coaches. Hasn't he, never fired a coach in his career?
System. Well, it's hard to get coaches to buy into the system that you're playing.
Sure,
because
I understand
the ball
that.
comes out so quick. The necessity that you're teaching, and you're teaching a standardized technique to an offensive lineman or a wide receiver when the ball does get out really quick, when it's about spreading out and getting in the hashes. And a lot of coaches just don't buy into that. What it is Heupel has to add legs to his offensive playmakers. That's what it has to happen.
It's got to be willing to adapt.
Yes.
And Tennessee today, I think, has a championship-level defensive coaching staff. I don't think Tennessee has an offensive coaching staff that is national championship caliber. Their defensive staff is better than their offensive staff.
Hands down.
Between Ronnie Gardner,
I agree.
between the yearly linebackers coach you brought in last season, who I think is fantastic, and William Inge, Willie Martinez, who's coached at a really high level, Mike Eckler, who I think does a good job. I think that side of your staff is better than your offensive side.
100%.
Absolutely.
And that also, to me, is what I've said as far as this college football playoffs, too. The coaches, I felt like that other squads have, specifically offensively, have been better. And looking at how Tennessee held up Ohio State in that first round, like defensively, they got the goods. Offensively, there was no answers or no adjustments in that college football playoff game against Ohio State.
615-737-1045. Final call for phone calls as we wrap up the show next. It's RKW 104.5 The Zone, wrapping up the show on your Tuesday morning. Buck Rise got you covered. Coming up next, a quick check on the Thursday 3 with 2 weeks to go. We got a close race. Ramon and Kayla now tied at 31 and 32. Bert 32 and 31, and I have taken a lead at 34 and 29.
How many more weeks?
Two more weeks. So we only have 6 more picks total.
Oh.
Wow.
All right, can we actually separate from one another, too, considering the NFL games and college games is out the way? Like, what else are we left with?
Yeah,
I know we can't bet on the Pro Bowl.
We only have 2 games to do this upcoming weekend, so we're going to have to double dip on one of them and pick the total. And then the Super Bowl, we can allow player props. Is the rule.
Super Bowl.
There's only 2 things we can pick in the Super Bowl.
Not incorporating college basketball in this?
No.
Football.
Yeah. All right. Well, here we go.
All right.
Here we go, then.
Sprint to the finish.
Let's go to Daryl, who is in White House up next. What's up, Daryl?
Yeah, I wanted to call and comment about a caller to Buck Rising show yesterday, parent Vandy fan, who made a comment about the Lady Vols. He said 15 in the nation, my A, and they can go back and sit at the house, and watch the rest of the games.
Wow.
Number one, Lady Vols, I believe, if I recall correctly, their record is 80-11 against Vanderbilt Commodores.
Dang.
So when he wants to make some comments, he can comment about that. And number two, they are the only team in the country who have played in the NCAA tournament since its existence for 36 years. So to the Vandy fans out there, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
I love that. I love it.
We got a caller rivalry
Thank
now.
you, Daryl. I appreciate it.
The rivalry's back.
Daryl, this is
80
why.
and 11.
This is the fan me speaking. This is why when you get an opportunity, don't little brother nobody. No, beat the heck out of them. Do you understand me? I don't care how sorry they are. You beat the heck out of them. Daryl, you and me, I don't know who you are specifically, but whenever you come up to me and say, hey, Ramon, I'm Daryl, and you show me your ID and I can identify you, me and you going to have drinks because that's how I feel about it. It was 80-11?
Yeah, 80, that was Vanderbilt's 11th win all time against Tennessee to Tennessee's 80 other wins.
This is why.
I'm here for this.
In one of the worst officiated sporting events
Fun.
I've ever watched in my entire life.
I'm glad this happened, though. I really am.
Right?
That was Vandy. Shout out to y'all this upcoming weekend as I wear my Tennessee
It's a rivalry
right
again.
now.
Look, it's crazy.
This is what we look for. I absolutely love it.
I mean, so 2 things can be true, right? If you're a Vanderbilt fan, you have every right to celebrate your wins over Tennessee, 100%.
Yep.
The other side is also true that Tennessee fans are not going to celebrate when they get you back in Knoxville in a couple weeks.
I am.
Not in the same way.
I am.
Ramon's
Except
like,
for Ramon
I will be
Foster.
doing that on these airwaves.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Just like now you regret not doing the Steelers win early on in the season.
Absolutely.
Just pushing into it.
This year has carved out another path for me into fandom.
Right.
And by the way, this has no bearings on anything other than me, okay? So if you're recruiting my kids, cool. I ain't no problem with that. Don't judge them off of me, all right? I'm a different person. If I got to support them and wear a different color, I'm all into it. But as far as me versus you, y'all lost me. I'm no longer on the soapbox with Vandy again.
I hope that caller was listening that called in.
Daryl, catch me outside. I'm here for this,
I want
okay?
a rivalry
Me and you
now.
will have a nice drink together. I don't care if it's Kool-Aid, okay? We're going to sip something together and we're going to bask in it next time the Vols get a dub. You hear me?
And coming up next month, the best college baseball team in the country starts playing, which is Tennessee.
Yeah, man. That's what I'm talking about.
It's a good little reminder for people. Chris in California gets the final call. What's up, Chris?
Oh, man, are you guys talking about that 9-0 baseball team, that Vols team against Vanderbilt the last 3 years? Or is it that team you're talking about coming up? Or is it the dominance we've had in football over Vandy? I swear, if I run into a Commodore downtown, we're having words, that poor guy's not even going to know what's coming. By the way, nice to hear from y'all. I haven't talked to y'all in a while. California's on fire. But listen, y'all, this is absolutely, I love this. Because the last time there was a semblance to this was when they did this is our state. This is our state. And you got absolutely boot stomped for the next 5 years. Here it comes again. I'll hang up. Y'all have a wonderful day. Love y'all.
Yes. Appreciate the call.
We need more of this. This is what we've been saying, man.
Now we need a Vandy caller to call in. I want to keep this going.
Luckily, we don't have time.
That was more than what I was thinking about inside of the arena and Memorial Gym, but Will was right. Well, you 100% correct. 2 things you was right about. The fans, yes. screw them, okay? All right, that side of it. But y'all can't talk trash on social media if you're not also walking inside a Memorial
If you don't
Gym.
show up. Yeah, the students of Vanderbilt, the only ones that deserve any credit for that atmosphere.
I saw, to your point, y'all got to euthanize. No, not euthanize.
Euthanize, jeez.
Y'all got to make your crowd, you have to make your crowd younger.
I agree with that.
Will brought this up, and I didn't believe it till I saw it. I know. I mentioned old people and euthanizing. I mentioned old people and euthanizing, Bert. You're right. We can't do that. You got to get in there and support your squad, young folks. You can't just troll on social media, because when we stomp you, I need to see your faces, okay, is what I'm telling you. I can't talk trash with an old person, but I will to a 40 and younger. No, 50 and younger. You getting it, okay?
Nah, if you're driving, you could talk crap to them. I'm sorry, if you got a driver's license, you getting crap talked to.
And the excuse for years was, well, who would support this team? Right. They're so bad.
Now
they're terrible. It's Jerry Stackhouse. Well, you're good now. What's your excuse now, Vandy?
Go support your team, man. Take your gym back.
Seriously.
It used to be a good environment. But your students, if Vandy students are out there listening, you deserve a pat on the back. Mm-hmm. You made it a hostile environment.
You did.
The ones older than you who went before you contributed absolutely nothing to it.
Call them out, you geezers. We're going to euthanize you.
I did not mean that.
Back at it tomorrow morning. We will have Rhett Bryan. We'll have more Titans discussion about the new GM, and we'll see what else breaks in the NFL. Coaching carousel heating up. Imagine we'll get another couple head coach hirings today.
Yeah. Oh, and I think we might have a presser tomorrow for Borgonzi.
Really? Good.
It's word on the street.
Y'all know how it goes, man. When you win, talk trash. But also remember, your Twitter fingers and your mic is always hot.